Amanda is a 4th of July when it came to personalities. When you think of 4th of July, you think it's fun, having fun. Amanda has a warmth about her.
And that is Amanda Pardue, age 35. And the reason why she's wearing scrubs is because she's working at the Hamilton Female Clinic.
She was the receptionist, and she absolutely loved it.
She loves helping people because that's how Amanda was. Amanda was like a ball of sunshine. And she would make you feel like you were the best person in the world. She already had 2 children. She had a boy and a girl. She had already been divorced for a couple years before I met her.
The children ended up going to live with the grandparents, but her kids were doing great, and so she was still really happy and upbeat and optimistic about the future.
Amanda was a single female. She was a beautiful girl. So yes, she dated. At that time, it was the big rave to go on the internet to find somebody that you can connect with. So she was going on them sites. She hit left. And that's how she met Seth Peralt, through the internet.
Well, he was very handsome, kind of dashing, had a little bit of money so that they could do things and have fun.
He made her feel wonderful, beautiful. Before you knew it, she was in love. They were in love. We were like, slow the roll, slow down. But how can you tell somebody when they're in love to slow down? Seth had this beautiful home. The town was called Social Circle. It's here in Georgia. But Amanda was looking for love, not a home. It wouldn't have mattered if he lived in a mobile home or if he had that home. She was in love with him. They moved in together. A little bit fast, a little bit fast, but wonderful.
I was so happy for her, very happy.
I went and visited Amanda to check out this guy because I want to know more about him. And I interrogate people. And I interrogated him. And that's how I found out a lot of things. Whoa. He couldn't tell me how he made his money because he didn't have a job. You got your beautiful home, you got your cars, you got your motorcycles without a job. How do you do that? Because I would like to know because I want to do that. He didn't have no money. That it was all his father's money. That's how they were living. That's how they were eating.
I mean, who's almost 40 and has their parents paying for everything?
Six months after her and Seth had moved in together, knock, knock, you have a little girl. I get a phone call from Amanda, it's funny now, saying he's got a kid. And I'm thinking, where in the hell did this baby come from?
It was a surprise that Seth had a daughter. Her name was Bray.
Seth had this ex-girlfriend, and they ended up having a baby.
I know that Amanda was oddly cool about it. She's a better person than I am. I would have had questions.
She opened her arms and took that child in. Amanda fell in love with her. No qualms, no nothing. She took that child in, it was her own.
I open up my phone and I look on Facebook, and my best friend of 38 years just got married.
The only people who were at the wedding was Seth, Amanda, her daughter, her son, and Bray. That's it. It was almost like a secret hush-hush kind of thing. I said, you went off and got married without me? Oh, Vina, it was so rush, rush, rush. He wouldn't let me get my hair done. He wouldn't let me do this. He wouldn't allow me to do that. I said, what in the hell is going on? If you are so much in love with somebody, would you not give them the wedding? Would you not want her sisters there and her best friend and her to be so happy? That tells you it was a business. He wanted Amanda for a certain reason. I told her it was a very bad idea to stop working. You always have to have your own little money. But what I got from Amanda is that Seth wanted her home to be a housewife. That was his way of controlling her, financial control, by telling her how much she can spend, what she can spend. Why? He's got her life in his hands, and he knows it. One day, I got a phone call from Amanda saying that my husband's gonna join the police force. I said, what? You go from not having a job to becoming a police officer. And in Georgia, that is a lot of weight. You're a good old Southern boy that's a cop. But she was so proud that he did it. You have pictures of him getting his badge, and she's standing right next to him. They're all beaming with pride.
The idea of Seth becoming a police officer was mind-boggling to me. I think that he specifically chose being a police officer for his ego, so that he could have more control, even more than he already had. When Seth wants something, Seth gets it.
For him, that uniform meant I'm better than you, and now I can prove it. I am above the law, because I am the law.
I am a real estate broker. Amanda had reached out to me and asked me to help Seth's father with selling the house at Social Circle. So I had a friend at the time, and I said, let's make a road trip out of it. Let's go visit my friend Amanda. And Amanda was just so happy to see me. We walked through the house, and she's so proud of the decor. But all of a sudden, Seth walks in. And I look over at Amanda, and she's like ghost white. Her entire demeanor changed. Once we got into the car, my friend said, Carrie, something's really wrong. And she said, look, she said, the hairs on my arms are standing up. She said, Carrie, don't be surprised if he kills her. I was like, you are insane. I was so confused because Amanda had what she'd always wanted. She had the house. She had Bray to take care of. She's living her best life. I didn't want to hear what my friend was trying to articulate to me. that Amanda was in danger. I wasn't ready to hear it.
They had lake access, they have golf carts, very safe neighborhood. It's a perfect neighborhood to raise your family there. When they first moved in there, everything was hunky-dory. And the neighbors thought Seth was a nice gentleman. They felt a little bit more secure because he was a police officer. He was the law.
Life looked perfect. It was literally picture perfect to the outside world. Amanda always made it out to be that everything was fine. Everything's great. So I started feeling a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable until the text started coming. Amanda finally started bringing me in a little bit about some things that were going on with her. Seth would call her fat and would just demean her and call her really ugly names.
That's like the beginning. But them little things escalate. And before you know it, he's pushing you around, grabbing a hold of you. For him, it's like a power trip. They're trying to mentally break you down. They began to fight. So what Amanda did was went to the next door neighbor's bushes. She hid in their bushes so he wouldn't see her.
And Seth automatically assumed that she went to the neighbor's house. And he literally barges in the door of this neighbor, and he's going through their house, and they're just like in shock. And they're like, "What are you doing here?" "I'm looking for my wife. Where's she at? I know she's here." And they're like, No, she's not here. Get out of our house. We're gonna call the police. And he says, "I am the police." To me, that shows me that he's not a real police officer. He's more of a wolf in sheep's clothing. These were strangers. And if he could treat complete strangers like that, I thought, what must Amanda have been going through all alone? I stopped receiving phone calls. I stopped getting messages. All of that went away.
She'd be calling me through the iPad or Messenger, Facebook Messenger thing. Amanda did not have a cell phone. I believe the reason why she did not have a cell phone is that he could keep tabs on her all the time. Seth had completely controlled the money because Amanda didn't have any.
Amanda couldn't even buy feminine products. Her basic needs were not even being met.
We successfully got her to leave a couple times. She would leave and he'd be on the phone trying to get her back before she could get out of the driveway.
He finds her kryptonite, and her kryptonite is, if you don't come back, who knows what's going to happen to Bray.
Seth would call, make that phone call, and she would go home. That little girl is what kept her in that house, because she considered that little girl her own child, and she was not going to leave her. My birthday's on June 6th. Amanda always would call me. I was getting a little confused because Amanda wasn't calling me for my birthday like she always does, and we Zoom. So I would physically see her. Well, she wouldn't Zoom me. She would just call me. And I said, no, I want to Zoom. I want to see your face. I want to see you. And she's like, no, 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 no. And I'm thinking to myself, something's not right. I had my phone in my hand. So I quickly hit that button for a Zoom to where we could be on camera. And I took that picture within seconds. Picture I took of Amanda, it scared me. So I took the picture, I don't know, so I could show her one day, so she could see it, you know? Like, this is what he does to you. You can see where her jaw is all swollen. And I asked her, what's going on here? Well, she told me really what happened. He turned around and jacked her right in the jaw. Just punched her like a man. He almost broke her jaw. That's how hard he hit her. Then another occurrence happened. These are the pictures that she took of herself. Looks like he punched her in the face. Her eyes all swollen. It just makes me angry. Just anger. After that picture was taken, life got a hell of a lot worse. Everything escalated.
Some days later, I get this really alarming, cryptic text from Amanda. Have a super jealous husband that records everything. He will see this message because our phones are synced and my house has cameras throughout. And then she says, monitored all day and night. You know, she's scared, she can't do anything without him seeing what she's doing. And then Amanda says, have a nice place, but living in a prison. Going to delete these messages. He may still see them, but keep them for me, please. Amanda was leaving breadcrumbs with me because she trusted that I would be able to communicate if something ever happened to her. I had the breadcrumbs. Why couldn't I put the pieces together? Was I not intuitive enough? I feel guilty that I could have done more or should have done more.
One night, I got a phone call from Amanda. This is probably, I don't know, probably 9:30, 10 o'clock. Saying that somebody was lurking around her house. She saw somebody walking. She didn't see who it was a shadow. She could tell that it was a man that walked by the window. It scared the crap out of her. I said, well, did you call 911? She goes, no, I called Seth, and Seth told me not to call the cops, that he's gonna take care of her when he gets home. He told Amanda, do not call the police, don't get them involved. The second time it happened, again, I thought, it's gotta be one of these hoodlums that are around the neighborhood trying to break into people's cars or something. And then the basement door, somebody was trying to get in it. She's got a child at home by herself. Somebody's wiggling the door. She's scared. She calls her husband. He tells her, calm down. I'll take care of it. That's when I knew something wasn't right. He's a cop. Somebody's trying to break into your house. Where's your security? Where's your lights? They only occurred when Seth was on night shift. It never occurred any time when Seth was actually home.
So we had the suspicion All of this burglary nonsense was purely Seth playing games with Amanda, terrorizing her and just control over her and making her feel fear.
On January 28th of 2020, I got a Zoom call from Amanda. She was in the bedroom with Bree, and she was crying hysterically. I knew something was going on. She's Zooming me. So I'm getting an actual view of Amanda when it actually went down. Seth grabbed a hold of her and pulled her out of the house. You can hear Bree in the background. Mommy, are you okay? Mommy, are you okay? First thing come out of my mouth is hang the phone up, call 911.
Amanda finally gets help from someone outside. The neighbors provided Amanda with a safe place, and police are called.
Thank you for holding. How may I help you?
Yes, can you please send the officer out to Long Island Drive?
What is your name?
Amanda Perrault.
Okay, and what's going on today?
It's my husband. He's putting his hands on me.
Who is?
My husband. He works for Eatonton Police Department.
What's his name?
Michael Seth Perrault.
Has he threatened you with his weapon or anything?
No, he hasn't, but he has put his hands on me. He's like putting his finger in my face and pushing me against the wall and putting his hands on my neck.
Okay. We'll get somebody out there, okay?
Seth Perrault's wife reported that she'd been assaulted by Seth. The deputies responded. She had some reddish marks around her neck area, chest area, right in here. He basically battered her in that way and thrown her out of the home. They, in turn, talked to the daughter. She ran and hid in the closet while this happened. That wasn't the first time she hid in the closet, that she tried to intervene to help Amanda.
How do you say your name?
Bray.
Bray?
R-A.
What did you do when they started fighting?
I was kind of just there trying to protect Miss Amanda because Daddy could take on his own self. I went to go in my bedroom because my dad said so. And then I heard Miss Amanda screaming and I thought she was like getting hurt, so I ran in there. And I think Daddy may have kicked her. I'm not really sure. And then all of a sudden Daddy just started grabbing her arms and then she was trying to get around him, and then Daddy just pushed her over the laundry table.
And Bray says, you know, my daddy hit my mommy and pushed her out the door.
What did you think when you saw that?
I was mad at my daddy. I don't understand why Daddy would do such a thing.
The cops put him in handcuffs and take him out of the house.
As they were getting ready to put him in the patrol car and take him to jail, he said to her, I got you now.
And Amanda's telling me they're taking him to jail. They're taking him to jail. The first thing that came out of my mouth was like, pack your and get out of that house. You don't get it. He's going to lose his job over this. He's going to kill you, Amanda. The next day, she goes to the court.
The judge considered that Seth had to stay away from his wife as a condition of bond while this matter was pending. But Amanda actually said that she did not want that to occur. Now, she was distraught, I could tell. The judge was very adamant, asking her, was she sure she didn't want a stay-away order in place? And she answered that she was sure. Her response was, well, he doesn't have anywhere else to go.
Of course he had somewhere to go. He has family. He had plenty of places to go. He's sitting in that jail cell. His world is crumbling around him. And Seth used Amanda's love for Bray. Amanda's worst fear was, would he hurt Bray? He verbalizes that to Amanda. I can only imagine that she felt defeated. So that was Amanda's attempt at trying to show Seth, I can fix this. I can fix it. And Amanda knows a restraining order won't stop Seth.
And Amanda went to that judge and told that judge she can come home. And I was sick to my stomach. When she did that, that judge signed her death warrant. In his eyes, Amanda had ruined his life. And that was it.
Not only was Seth getting ready to lose his job as a police officer, he was looking at losing custody of his child too.
He sat there in that house with her for 6 days. I remember being on the phone calls with her. I'm talking to her, saying, "Are you okay, Amanda? How is the situation? How is he acting?" And he was acting so nice. It was disgusting. I was like, "You need to get out of that house, Amanda. You need to get out of that house."
That day in February, I pulled up to Long Island Drive with my subpoena for Mr. Peralt. When I got to his place, he had one of those video doorbells, and I pushed the button and waited. And I heard heavy footfalls inside the house, and I assumed that it was somebody running to the door. The footfalls moved from one side of the house, kind of toward the front door, but not to the front door. And the footfalls retreated. I rang the doorbell again. I was there for about 7 minutes. It's like, come on, man, just answer the door. The man would have known what it was. And finally, I gave up. So I drive away from the Peralt's house, and I go on about my patrolling. I make it 3 or 4 or 5 miles away, and I get a call from my shift supervisor requiring me to return to the Peralt house because of a reported incident. I go quickly. Seth Peralt comes out the front door of the house. He was holding his cell phone, and he was blubbering. He was inconsolable. He said that Amanda was dead.
I get a personal call from the chief of police. He's got Seth Peralt on the phone, and Seth has told him that his wife had committed suicide. We drove as fast as we could, with lights and sirens on. I arrive on the scene. Seth was sitting on the steps holding his hands over his eyes. I walked in the house, and I entered the bedroom. when I saw the body of the deceased. It was Amanda Peralta. And I could see a gunshot wound to her head. This is Amanda's body. And the first thing you see in the bottom right-hand corner there below her feet is the pistol itself. You see her body with her legs together. She's flat on her back. Her arms are pulled completely against her side. And on her right side, maybe 4 or 5 inches from her right hand, is the magazine to the pistol. Well, you know, I'm a graduate of the FBI National Academy, and I've got a college degree. But you know what? Anybody could tell that scene wasn't right.
The sheriff had asked Peralta if he would ride with me to the sheriff's office. He was not under arrest. I realized just how clean he was. The man had no blood on him. Law enforcement officers are trained first responders. The first responders try to stop the blood from coming out. You don't walk away from scenes like that clean. He just kept talking and blubbering. He reiterated that his wife had committed suicide. But when we got closer to the sheriff's office, he begged me to pull the car over and shoot him in the head. It was unsettling. It made the little short hairs come up on your neck because it wasn't right. Perhaps his wife hadn't killed herself.
And so we went back to my office and interviewed him about what had occurred that day.
Sheriff, I've lost everything. I know how this goes. You know, I'm a police officer. You know, I know how this goes. Can I talk to you off the record and talk to you like plainly?
Well, we're talking pretty plain,
okay? Yes, sir. I lost my wife, and I promise you, I'll look you in your face as a law enforcement officer. I did not do anything. I had nothing to do with it. My wife looked at me and executed herself.
Of all the times I've ever questioned anybody, I've never heard anyone use the term executed.
She looked at me and said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I put you through this. Boom. I saw my wife execute herself.
That's an unusual term to use when making reference to a suicide.
Look, listen, your deputies arrested me, okay?
This is not about the other day. This is about your wife being dead today.
My whole name got destroyed. Every time she'd go click on Facebook, she'd be like, there it is.
The only thing he wanted to tell me was that my deputies shouldn't have arrested him on January the 28th, and what a great police officer he was.
I take pride in being a good law enforcement agent. I hope you know that. And the fact of the matter is, I'm a good police officer.
You want to talk about your arrest, you want to talk about all of that. I want to talk about your wife.
And I'm willing to talk to you about it.
Let me say, have you had anything to drink today?
It was a very bizarre interview. It really was.
I kept on getting a Facebook phone call. And I'm thinking, who in the hell is calling my phone at 10 o'clock at night through Facebook? And it was Amanda's cousin. And first thing he said, did you speak to Amanda today? I knew it. I said, he killed her. He killed her. And that's how I found out my best friend died.
Well, I knew he was guilty, but what I wanted was more evidence before I actually made an arrest. So I let him go that day.
We already knew that he killed her. We knew it wasn't a suicide. And knowing that he was let go
and back out on the streets was devastating.
And then I lived a nightmare from that day on. A living, walking nightmare.
I went back out to the scene. I laid down on the bed myself to show the district attorney the position the body had been in. You mean to tell me that she shot herself and then she laid supine, pulled her legs together, completely together, pulled her arms against the body, took the magazine out of the gun after she shot herself? Dead people don't remove magazines out of guns. You know, it was just evidence of guilt, in my opinion. I decided to obtain an arrest warrant and go arrest him. When I went to his sister's home where I knew he was staying, when I pulled up in the yard to get out of the car, he's sitting on the porch talking to his attorney. During the trial, I testified in court.
It was absolutely obvious to me that Amanda Peralta could not have shot herself, and somebody absolutely had to have taken the magazine from that pistol, moved that pistol to the location it was, and had to have moved that body.
Throughout the trial, at any time I looked at him, I never saw Seth express any remorse or anything of that. He was pretty much stoic and often looked at the table itself, not even in the direction of the witnesses or anything. One of the most damaging pieces of evidence against Seth was when his daughter said that Amanda had told her that if Seth lost custody of Bray because of that arrest, that Seth was going to shoot her dead, is what the child said. Well, he was convicted of murder, and when the jury returned the guilty verdict, the Judge Trammell, our Chief Superior Court judge, promptly sentenced him to life without parole. Well, it goes to show you that you don't know what's going on behind those closed doors. The facade of what you see on the outside is not indicative of what's going on the inside. Very sad situation.
Right now, what's important is that Amanda's story is out, but it hurts a lot. It's tremendous amount of guilt and pain and sadness.
She was my life. So yeah, I'll go to my grave thinking I should have done something. I should have just got in my car, got on the damn plane, and just pulled her out of that house. But I didn't. I gotta look up to the sky to talk to my best friend because I did not take the initiative. So yeah, go find out what's going on. Do something. Just do something.
I do take solace in that I kept the messages. When I spoke with my friend, she said, "You will always have my back, and I love you so much for that. My thoughts and prayers are with you in these days, months,
and years ahead. That was Amanda.
London is a city of 8 million stories, 8 million overlapping lives fighting for space on the pavement, fighting for a breath of air in the underground, fighting to be seen, to be heard, to be remembered. But for every story that is shouted from the rooftops, there are a dozen others that slip through the cracks, whispered only in the dead of night. Stories of the ones who stepped off the curb and simply never reached the other side. We like to think we are safe in the surveillance capital of the world, watched by a million unblinking mechanical eyes, tracked by the digital footprints we leave behind like breadcrumbs in a concrete forest. We tell ourselves that no one can just vanish. Not really, not anymore. We tell ourselves that the earth doesn't just open up and swallow a 16-year-old boy whole on a Tuesday evening in November. But we are wrong. We are so terribly, naively wrong. Because sometimes the cameras blink. Sometimes the breadcrumbs are swept away by the rain. And sometimes the boy who walks into the fog isn't just lost, he is erased. This is the story of a ghost who refused to stay dead. This is the story that froze the blood of an entire nation, a nightmare that began with a silence so loud it shattered a family and ended, or so we thought, 20 years later, with a scream that no one was prepared to hear. Tonight, we are opening the file that the Metropolitan Police marked as closed in their hearts, if not their books, 2 decades ago. We are going back to the night the clock stopped for the Thorne family. We are going back to the mystery of Leo Thorne, the golden boy of Kensington who went out to buy a pint of milk and a newspaper and returned a middle-aged man with a lifetime of secrets locked behind eyes that had seen things no human soul should ever witness. But before we get to the miracle, before we get to the twisted, impossible return that made headlines from majestic Fleet Street to the frantic newsrooms of New York, we have to start with the loss. We have to start with the perfection that came before the fall. It was November 14th, 2003. A Tuesday. The kind of London evening that feels heavy, the sky a bruised purple, pressing down on the chimney pots and the slate roofs. The air smelled of damp wool, exhaust fumes, and that peculiar, metallic tang of the coming winter frost. In the affluent, leafy streets of South Kensington, the lamps were already flickering on, casting long, amber pools of light against the white stucco facades of the Victorian terraces. It was a world of order, of privilege, of safety. This was not the London of dark alleyways and knife crime statistics. This was the London of diplomats, of museum curators, of private school uniforms and Sunday roasts. It was the last place on earth you would expect a horror story to take root. But horror, as we know, has no postcode. It doesn't check your bank balance before it knocks on your door. Leo Thorne was 16 years old. If you looked at a photograph of him from that time, and God knows, the world would look at his photograph millions of times in the years to come, you saw the face of promise. He had that floppy, chaotic hair that was fashionable in the early 2000s, a shy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, and the kind of effortless academic brilliance that made teachers nod in quiet approval. He was a cellist. He was a debater. He was the only child of David Thorne, a vascular surgeon, and Sarah Thorne, a high-profile architect. Leo was the center of their gravity, the sun around which their meticulously planned lives orbited. There were no red flags. There were no secret diaries filled with angst, no hidden stashes of drugs, no dodgy friends waiting in marked cars. He was, by every account, a good kid, a normal kid. And that is what makes this so terrifying. It is the normality that kills you. It is the routine that lulls you into a false sense of security right before the trapdoor swings open. That evening, at exactly 6:45 p.m., the Thorne household was a portrait of domestic tranquility. David was still at the hospital, scrubbing out of a marathon surgery. Sarah was in the kitchen, reviewing blueprints for a new gallery extension, a glass of Merlot untouched on the granite island. Leo came down the stairs. He was wearing his school trousers, a gray hoodie with the logo of a surfing brand he'd never worn to a beach, and battered Converse sneakers. He told his mother he was popping out to the local newsagent, the one just around the corner on Gloucester Road, to grab a magazine and a chocolate bar. It was a 5-minute walk. 10 minutes round trip. Sarah didn't even look up from her blueprints. She just said, "Take a jacket, it's freezing out there. And don't be long, dinner's in 20. Don't be long." 3 words. The last 3 words Sarah Thorne would speak to her son for 7,300 days. Leo grabbed his navy blue puffer jacket from the hook, a detail that would become crucial later, a splash of dark blue against the gray grain of CCTV footage, and opened the front door. The rush of cold air swirled into the hallway, momentarily fluttering the papers on the kitchen island. Sarah shivered, distracted, and called out, "Keys?" Leo tapped his pocket. "Got 'em. See you in a bit." The door clicked shut, the heavy thud of the latch engaging. And then silence. The walk from the Thorne residence to the newsagent on Gloucester Road is exactly 450 meters. We know this because the police walked it. The private investigators walked it. The journalists walked it. Sarah and David walked it every night, pacing the pavement until the soles of their shoes wore thin. It is a straight line. You turn left out of the gate, walk past the rows of parked luxury cars, cross one quiet intersection, and you are there. It is a route Leo had walked 1,000 times. It was well lit. There were people around, commuters rushing home with their heads down against the wind, tourists looking for the tube station, locals walking dogs. It was not a desolate wasteland. It was a living, breathing artery of the city. At 7:15 p.m., Sarah looked at the clock on the microwave. 30 minutes had passed. A prickle of irritation. Nothing more. Teenagers get distracted. Maybe he bumped into a friend. Maybe the queue at the shop was long. She went back to her work. At 7:30 p.m., the irritation curdled into a vague unease.
Dinner was ready.
The pasta was steaming in the bowl. She picked up her mobile phone, a chunky Nokia model common at the time, and dialed Leo's number. It rang.
And rang. And rang.
Then the voicemail. "Hi, it's Leo. Leave a message." His voice, casual, bored, utterly alive. Sarah hung up. She didn't leave a message. She just thought, "Answer the phone, Leo." At 7:45 p.m., David's key turned in the lock. He came in looking exhausted, smelling of antiseptic. "Where's the boy?" he asked, loosening his tie. "He went to the shop an hour ago," Sarah said, her voice tight. "He's not answering his phone." David frowned. "Which shop?" "Gloucester Road." David sighed. "I'll drive by and see if he's loitering with someone. Probably lost track of time." He grabbed his keys again and went back out. The unease in the house was now a palpable thing, a static charge in the air. David drove the route. It took him 2 minutes. He parked in front of the newsagent. He went inside. The shopkeeper, Mr. Patel, knew the family. He knew Leo. "Leo?" Mr. Patel shook his head, wiping the counter. "Haven't seen him tonight, Dr. Thorne." Quiet night. David felt a cold drop of sweat slide down his spine. "Are you sure?" "He left an hour ago. He said he was coming here." "I've been here since 5, Mr. Patel said. "No, Leo." David walked out onto the street. He looked left. He looked right. The street was bustling. Buses roared past, their lights streaking in the damp air. People laughed, talked, argued. Life was happening everywhere. But Leo was nowhere. David called Sarah. He never made it to the shop. The silence on the other end of the line was the sound of a world cracking. "Come home," Sarah whispered. "We need to call the police." But calling the police in the first few hours of a missing teenager case is an exercise in frustration. The desk sergeant was polite, but dismissive. "He's 16, Mrs. Thorne. He's probably gone to a girl's house. Or a party. Or just needed some space. They usually turn up by morning." "You don't understand," Sarah pleaded, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch that she barely recognized as her own. "Leo isn't like that. He doesn't just wander off. He has a calculus exam tomorrow. He was wearing his slippers 5 minutes before he left. Something is wrong." They were told to wait. To wait 24 hours. But the Thornes didn't wait. They mobilized. By 10 p.m., they were on the streets with flashlights. They woke up the neighbors. They called Leo's friends one by one, A litany of terrified, sleepy teenage voices. Have you seen Leo? No, Mrs. Thorne. Is he with you? No, Mr. Thorne. Did he mention going anywhere?
No, no, no.
Every no was a hammer blow. Every no made the city feel bigger, darker, more hostile. The timeline established later by the Major Crimes Unit would pinpoint the window of disappearance with agonizing precision. Leo left his house at 6:45 p.m. The first CCTV camera, a private security camera mounted on a neighbor's garage 3 doors down, captured him at 6:46 p.m. He was walking at a normal pace, hands in his pockets, head down slightly against the wind. He looked relaxed. He looked normal. He passed under a street lamp, his face briefly illuminated, pale, young, unsuspecting. The next camera on his route was the council CCTV monitoring the intersection of Cromwell Road and Gloucester Road, just 200 meters further up. He should have appeared on that feed approximately 2 to 3 minutes later, at 6:48 p.m. or 6:49 p.m. The police seized the tapes. They watched them frame by frame. They watched 6:48 pass. They watched 6:49 pass. They watched until 7 p.m. They watched until midnight. Leo Thorne never appeared on that second camera. Somewhere in that 200-meter stretch of pavement, on a busy London street, between 6:46 p.m. and 6:49 p.m., Leo Thorne ceased to exist. 3 minutes. 180 seconds. That was the margin of error. That was the window of opportunity for the universe to play its cruelest trick. There were no screams reported. No screeching tires. No witnesses who saw a struggle. Just a boy walking into the shadow between 2 streetlights and never walking out. The investigation that followed was a frenzy. The police, finally realizing this wasn't a runaway case, descended on Kensington. They went door to door. They checked the boots of cars. They drained the nearby ornamental ponds in Kensington Gardens. They brought in the sniffer dogs, bloodhounds that tracked Leo's scent from his front door, down the pavement, past the neighbor's garage, and then stopped. The dogs just stopped. They circled the pavement, confused, whining. The scent didn't trail off. It simply vanished, as if he had been plucked vertically into the sky. The media latched onto the story with the ferocity of a starving animal. The boy who vanished. Kensington mystery. Where is Leo? His face was on every front page, plastered on every lamppost, broadcast on the evening news every night for months. Sarah and David sat on breakfast television sofas, holding hands so tightly their knuckles were white, pleading with the camera, begging for their son to come home. They looked aged, hollowed out, ghosts of the people they had been just weeks before. The public was captivated. It was the perfect mystery. A handsome boy, a wealthy family, a safe neighborhood, and absolutely zero clues. No ransom note ever came. No body was ever found. No credible sightings. Just nothing. The theories were endless. A professional kidnapping ring? But why no demand for money? A random act of violence? But where was the body? Where was the blood? A runaway? But with no money, no passport, no clothes? The internet sleuths of the early 2000s forums went wild. They analyzed the grainy CCTV footage until it was digital noise. They claimed they saw a black van. They claimed they saw a shadower. They accused the parents. They accused the friends. They spun webs of conspiracy that stretched from London to the sex trafficking rings of Eastern Europe. But theories don't bring boys home. Theories don't fill the empty chair at the dinner table. Weeks turned into months. The posters began to peel in the rain. The headlines became smaller, moving from page 1 to page 5, then page 10, then disappearing altogether. The police scaled back the search. The detective in charge, D.I. Miller, a man who had smoked 40 cigarettes a day during the first week of the investigation, sat in the Thornes' living room 1 year later. He couldn't look Sarah in the eye. "We've exhausted every lead," he said, his voice gravelly with defeat. "We're moving the case to the cold case unit. We aren't giving up, but..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. But he's gone. The first anniversary came and went. A vigil was held. Candles were lit. People cried. But the city moved on. London does not pause for grief. The buses kept running. The shops kept opening. The seasons changed. And the Thorne House became a mausoleum. David threw himself into his work, spending 18 hours a day at the hospital, running from the silence of his home. Sarah stopped working. She spent her days in Leo's room, dusting his books, washing his clothes that didn't need washing, waiting for the sound of a key in the lock that would never turn. 5 years passed. 10 years. 15. Leo Thorne became a footnote in the history of London crime, a cautionary tale told to children to make them come home before dark. He was the boy on the milk carton who never grew up. The world aged, technology advanced, governments fell and rose, but Leo remained frozen at 16, forever walking toward a newsagent he would never reach. He was dead. Legally, logically, rationally, he was dead. The coroner declared it in absentia. The file was dusty. The detectives who had worked the case retired. And then came the night of the storm. November 2023. Exactly 20 years later. Cut to the south of France. The Haute-Garonne region. It is a world away from the manicured streets of Kensington. Here, the landscape is rugged, vast, a tapestry of dense forests and winding mountain roads that snake through the Pyrenean foothills like arteries of black asphalt. It is the night of November 14th, 2023. The 20th anniversary to the day, and the sky is tearing itself apart. Storm Ciarán is battering the coast, sending shockwaves of rain and wind deep into the interior. The trees are bending double, groaning under the assault, their branches whipping against the power lines. It is a night for locked doors, for shutters fastened tight against the howling dark. It is a night where nothing human should be outside. On the D125, a narrow, unlit road that connects the tiny hamlet of Revel with the larger town of Toulouse, a delivery driver named Fabien is fighting the wheel of his box truck. The rain is coming down in sheets, turning the windshield into a kaleidoscope of smeared light. Fabien is tired. He wants to be home. He is cursing the weather, cursing the job, his eyes straining against the hypnotic rhythm of the wipers. Swish, 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 swish. The headlights cut a pitiful cone of visibility into the deluge. And then he sees it, or thinks he sees it. A shape. A shadow detached from the tree-line. Fabien slams on the brakes. The truck skids, hydroplaning for a heart-stopping second before the tires bite into the gravel shoulder. He comes to a halt, his heart hammering against his ribs. He peers out into the storm. There, illuminated by the red glow of his taillights, is a figure. Walking. Not running, not seeking shelter, but walking with a slow, mechanical trudge along the muddy verge of the road. Fabien rolls down his window, the wind instantly screaming into the cab, soaking his arm. "Hey," he shouts in French. "Are you crazy? Get in." The figure stops. It turns slowly. In the harsh, flickering light, Fabien sees a face that will haunt his nightmares for years. It is a man. Gaunt. Hollowed out. His hair is matted, long, plastered to his skull by the rain. He is wearing oversized cargo trousers that are shredded at the hems and a thin, filthy t-shirt that clings to his emaciated frame. No shoes. He is barefoot on the freezing asphalt. But it is the eyes that freeze Fabien's blood. They are wide, unblinking, void of any recognition, void of any spark of humanity. They are the eyes of a creature that has forgotten what it means to be a man. The man doesn't answer. He simply stares, swaying slightly in the gale. Fabien grabs his phone and dials 17, the emergency number for the gendarmerie. "I have someone here," he shouts over the roar of the wind. On the D125. He looks like he's risen from the grave. 20 minutes later, the blue flashing lights of a patrol car cut through the gloom. 2 gendarmes, Officer Moreau and Officer Dubois, step out, their high-visibility jackets snapping in the wind. They approach the man cautiously. In this part of the world, wandering vagrants are rare. Drugs are rare. This is quiet country.
"Monsieur?"
Moreau calls out, hand resting instinctively near his holster. "Monsieur, do you have identification?" The man doesn't speak. He is shivering now, violent, convulsive tremors that rack his entire body. He looks at the officers with that same 1,000-yard stare. They realize quickly this isn't a threat. This is a medical emergency. They guide him into the back of the patrol car. He goes willingly, pliable as a rag doll. He smells of the forest, of pine needles, of wet earth, of stale sweat and wood smoke. It is an ancient, feral smell. They drive him to the station in Revel. It's a small, warm room with fluorescent lights that hum loudly. They sit him down on a plastic chair and wrap him in a thermal blanket. They offer him water. He takes the cup with trembling hands, staring at the liquid as if he doesn't know what it is, before drinking it in one desperate gulp. Then another. Then another. Officer Dubois tries to question him. What is your name?
Comment t'appelles-tu?
Do you have papers? Silence. The man just rocks back and forth, clutching the blanket. He looks around the room, his eyes darting to the computer screens, the telephone, the coffee machine, with a mix of terror and confusion. It's as if he has been dropped onto an alien planet. They check his pockets. Empty. No wallet. No phone. No keys. Just a handful of small, smooth stones and a crumpled wrapper from a French candy bar that looks years old. They try to fingerprint him, but his hands are rough, calloused, the skin worn down as if he has been working with stone or wood for decades without gloves. The scanner struggles to read the ridges. The officers exchange a look. Who is this phantom? A refugee? A mental patient who wandered away from a facility? A hermit living in the Pyrenees? For 3 hours he sits there. The clock on the wall ticks. The storm rages outside. And then, just as Officer Moreau is filling out the paperwork to transfer him to the hospital in Toulouse as a John Doe, the man speaks. His voice is a croak, unused, rusty, like a door hinge that hasn't been opened in a century. The room goes silent. The officers freeze. Yes. Moreau leans in.
Speak.
We are listening. The man takes a breath that rattles in his chest. He looks up, and for the first time, a flicker of something, maybe memory, maybe pain, ignites in those dead eyes. He speaks in English. A clear, upper-class British accent that sounds utterly incongruous coming from this wild, broken man. I want to go home. Where is home? Dubois asks in broken English. London. The man nods slowly. London.
Yes.
Kensington. The officers frown. Kensington. The wealthy district. They look at his rags, his bare feet. It doesn't add up. What is your name? Dubois asks again, softer this time. The man closes his eyes. He seems to be reaching back through the fog, grasping for a word that he hasn't owned in a very long time. Tears begin to leak from his closed lids, cutting clean tracks through the grime on his cheeks. Leo, he whispers. Leo what?
Thorne.
My name is Leo Thorne. Officer Moreau types the name into the Interpol database. He does it routinely, expecting nothing. Maybe a petty criminal, a runaway. He hits enter. The screen loads. And then, the red banner flashes. Red notice. Missing person. High priority. Case file. Metropolitan Police UK. Date of birth. 1987. Date of disappearance. November 14th, 2003. Moreau stops breathing. He blinks. He looks at the screen. He looks at the man. He looks back at the screen. The photo on the monitor is a school portrait. A 16-year-old boy with floppy hair and a shy smile. A boy with bright eyes and a navy blue blazer. Moreau looks at the wreck of a human being sitting in the chair 3 feet away. The nose is the same. The shape of the jaw. The earlobes. But the boy on the screen is a child. The man in the chair is 36 years old. Mon Dieu, Moreau whispers. It's him. The station erupts into a flurry of activity. The mood shifts from administrative boredom to high-voltage panic. They are holding a ghost. They are holding the boy who vanished. Phone calls are made. The captain is woken up. The protocol for international liaison is activated. In London, it is 3 a.m. The rain has stopped, leaving the streets slick and black. In the cold case unit at Scotland Yard, The lights are off, save for the standby LEDs on the servers. But the phone rings in the duty office. A young detective constable, barely awake, picks it up. Met police. This is the French gendarmerie, Revel Station. We have a match on an Interpol red notice. Name, Leo Thorne. The constable freezes.
He knows the name.
Everyone in the Met knows the name. It's part of the academy training. It's the unsolvable puzzle. Repeat that, he stammers, sitting up straight, the sleep vanishing instantly. Did you find a body? No, the French officer says, his voice trembling slightly over the line.
No body.
He is here. He is alive. He is sitting in front of me. The silence that stretches across the English Channel in that moment is heavier than the ocean itself.
Alive.
The word echoes in the constable's head. It defies logic. It defies the probabilities. It defies the narrative. Leo Thorne is dead. Everyone knows he is dead. You don't walk out of a void after 20 years. Secure him, the constable orders, his voice shaking. Do not let him leave. Do not let anyone speak to him. We are mobilizing. We are coming. The call ends. The constable stares at the phone. He has to make the call that no one ever expects to make. He has to call the parents, David and Sarah Thorne. At the Thorne residence in Kensington, the house is dark. The room that was Leo's is exactly as it was. The bed is made. The posters are still on the wall, faded now. David and Sarah are in their bedroom, asleep.
They are older now.
David is retired, his hands too shaky for surgery. Sarah is gray, her movements slower. They have lived in the shadow of the void for 2 decades. They have mourned. They have accepted. They have survived. The landline rings. It is a jarring, violent sound in the quiet house. Who calls at 3:15 a.m.? David groans, rolling over. He fumbles for the handset. Hello? Mr. Thorne? It is a voice of authority, but it is laced with a strange hesitation. This is DCI Miller. I need you to listen to me very carefully. David sits up. Sarah stirs beside him. What is it? Is it about? He can't say the name. Mr. Thorne, we have received a call from the French police. They have found a man. A body. David closes his eyes. He has waited for this.
He has prepared for this.
Just tell me. We are ready. No, David. Not a body.
A man.
He walked out of the woods near Toulouse 3 hours ago. He identified himself as Leo. The world stops. The air leaves the room. David's hand grips the phone so hard the plastic creaks. That's impossible. It's a hoax. It's some sick joke. We ran the biometrics we have on file through Interpol, DCI Miller says. The fingerprints are a partial match, but the facial recognition. David, the probability is 99%. It's him. He's alive. David drops the phone. It clatters to the floor. Sarah is awake now, looking at him with wide, terrified eyes. David? David, what is it? He turns to her. He tries to speak, but his mouth is dry, his throat constricted by a sudden, violent sob. He grabs her shoulders.
Leo, he gasps.
They found Leo. Sarah stares at him. She doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. She goes perfectly still, as if she is turned to stone. Alive, she whispers. Alive. The next 6 hours are a blur of blue lights, airports, and official cars. A government jet is scrambled. This is not just a missing person case anymore. It is a national event. The Home Secretary is briefed. The press embargo is slapped down with draconian force. No one is to know until the parents see him. They land in Toulouse at dawn. The sky is a bruised gray, the storm having passed, leaving the world washed clean. The drive to the hospital, Leo has been moved to a secure ward, is agonizing. David and Sarah sit in the back of the consular car, holding hands. They don't speak. What is there to say?
How? Why?
Where? The questions are too big for the car. They fill the sky. They arrive at the hospital. Armed guards are at the door. Doctors in white coats are waiting. One of them, a specialist in trauma, steps forward. Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, before you go in, You must prepare yourselves. Physically, he is. Well, he is malnourished. He has scars. But mentally, he is in a state of profound shock. He has not spoken since he gave his name. He may not recognize you. He may be afraid. Sarah nods. She doesn't care. She just needs to see. They walk down the corridor. The smell of antiseptic, the smell David has lived with his whole life, is overwhelming. They stop at room 304. The guard steps aside. The door opens. The room is dim. The blinds are drawn. In the bed, hooked up to 4 drips, lies a man. He is sleeping. His face is gaunt, the cheekbones sharp enough to cut. His hair has been washed but is still long. His hands, resting on the white sheet, are scarred and rough. Sarah walks forward. Her legs feel like lead. She approaches the bed. She looks down. And there, beneath the layers of trauma, beneath the beard, beneath the lines of pain etched into the skin, she sees him. She sees the curve of the eyebrow. She sees the small mole on the neck. She reaches out a trembling hand and touches his cheek. It is warm. He is real. The man's eyes flutter open. They are blue. The same piercing blue as the boy who left to buy milk. He looks at her. He blinks. There is no recognition at first, just fear. He flinches away from her touch. "Leo," she whispers. "Leo, it's Mum." He stares. His chest heaves. He looks at David, standing by the door, weeping silently. He looks back at Sarah. And then, a sound tears from his throat. A guttural, animal sound of pure anguish. He curls into a ball, pulling his knees to his chest, hiding his face. He begins to rock. "I didn't tell," he mumbles into the sheets. "I didn't tell. I didn't tell." Sarah freezes. "Tell what, darling? Tell who?" "The woods," he whispers, his voice cracking. "I didn't tell them about the woods." The reunion is not a movie moment. It is not hugs and laughter. It is broken. It is terrifying. But he is there. The news breaks an hour later. The embargo lifts. And the world goes insane. Breaking news. Leo Thorne found alive. The headline flashes across every screen in London, in New York, in Tokyo. People stop in the streets. Anchormen choke up on air. It is the miracle of the century. But as the initial wave of euphoria passes, the darker questions begin to rise like sludge. Where was he? Who took him? And why, after 20 years of silence, did he suddenly appear walking down a French country road in the middle of a storm? The French police begin their examination of his clothes. They find the candy wrapper. They find the stones. But then, the forensic team finds something else. Sewn into the lining of his filthy cargo trousers, hidden deep in the seam where no one would look, is a small, folded piece of paper. It is yellowed, brittle, stained with sweat. They carefully unfold it with tweezers. There is writing on it, scribbled in pencil. Faint, barely legible. It is a list. Rule 1. Never leave the perimeter. Rule 2. The watcher sees all. Rule 3. Forget your name. Rule 4. If you run, she dies. The detectives stare at the note. If you run, she dies. Who is she? Leo Thorne has come back from the dead. But he hasn't come back alone. He has brought a mystery with him that is far darker, far more twisted than anyone could have imagined. The investigation isn't over. It has only just begun. And the nightmare he escaped is still out there, waiting in the woods. London is a city that loves a spectacle, but nothing could have prepared the capital for the return of Leo Thorne. The convoy that sweeps him from the RAF Nordholt airfield to the secure wing of St. Thomas Hospital is not just a line of vehicles. It is a cortege of resurrection. The streets are lined 3 deep. People stand in the drizzle, holding smartphones aloft like votive candles, desperate to catch a glimpse of the blacked-out windows.
They want to see the boy who beat the odds.
They want to believe in miracles. But inside the armored Mercedes, wrapped in a blanket that smells of unfamiliar detergent, Leo Thorne is not thinking about miracles. He is thinking about the perimeter. He is checking the locks with his eyes. He is counting the seconds between the streetlights. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. the rhythm of survival. He is 36 years old, but in the sterile light of the hospital assessment room, he looks like a man made of glass. The medical report, which will later be redacted and sealed by the High Court, reads like a catalog of systematic abuse. It is not the abuse of sudden violence, but the slow, grinding erosion of a human being. His skin is translucent, pale as the belly of a fish, the skin of a man who has not felt the direct touch of the sun for years. His bone density is dangerously low. There are old fractures in his ribs and his left ulna that have healed crookedly, without the aid of a cast or a doctor. But it is the tattoos that make the examining physician, Dr. Aris, step back and take a sharp breath. They are not inked with a needle. They are crudely etched, perhaps with a piece of sharp wire or a shard of glass, scarification that is raised into keloid welts on his inner thigh. A series of tally marks. Groups of 5.
Hundreds of them.
A calendar of hell carved into his own flesh. And below the tally marks, a single word, jagged and angry. Sophie. Who is Sophie? Dr. Aris asks gently, adjusting the 4-line. Leo doesn't answer. He is staring at the window. The blinds are open, revealing the panoramic view of the Thames and the Houses of Parliament. It is a view that people pay millions for. Leo looks at it with absolute terror. Too much sky, he whispers. Close it. The watcher will see. Dr. Aris closes the blinds. You're safe here, Leo. The watcher can't get in here. There are guards. There are locks. Leo laughs. It is a dry, hacking sound. Locks are for keeping people in, not for keeping him out. The investigation has now shifted gears from recovery to intelligence. The priority is no longer just Leo's health. It is the information locked inside his fractured mind. Because of the note. If you run, she dies. The police know there is a hostage situation. Somewhere in a location Leo has fled, a woman is in mortal danger. But interrogating a trauma victim of this magnitude is like trying to defuse a bomb with a sledgehammer.
Push too hard, and he shuts down.
Don't push hard enough, and she dies. Enter DCI Miller and Dr. Eleanor Vance, a forensic psychologist with a reputation for unlocking the darkest corridors of the criminal mind. They sit in the observation room, watching Leo on the monitor. He is sitting on the bed, legs crossed, rocking slightly. He is shredding a paper cup into tiny, uniform strips. He's dissociating, Vance says, her voice low. He's physically here, but mentally, he's still in the box. Whatever place he was kept in. It was small, highly controlled. Look at how he arranges the strips of paper. Perfect symmetry. He's been conditioned to fear disorder. We don't have time for therapy, doctor, Miller grunts, the stress evident in the tight lines of his jaw. We have a frantic timeline. If he escaped, the captor knows. The captor is cleaning house. We need a location. Now. Miller enters the room. He leaves his badge, his gun, and his tie outside. He pulls up a chair, sitting low so he is not looming over Leo. Leo, he starts, his voice soft, paternal. I'm Detective Miller. I spoke to your father. He's just outside. He wants to see you again, but first, I need you to help me. Leo doesn't look up. Help you. I need you to help me find the place you were kept. I need you to help me find Sophie. At the mention of the name, Leo's hands freeze. The paper cup falls to the floor. He looks up, and the intensity in his eyes is terrifying. You can't find her. He moved us. He always moves us. Who is he? Miller asks. The father, Leo whispers. The teacher. The watcher. He has many names. What does he look like? Leo shakes his head frantically. You don't look at him. Rule number 2. The watcher sees all, but you must not see the watcher. If you look, you go in a hole. For days. No light. No food. Miller leans in. Leo, listen to me. You beat him. You escaped. You are the strong one. How did you get out? Leo's breath hitches. He looks down at his hands. The storm. The tree fell. It broke the fence. The electric fence. The power went out. The cameras. The red lights went off. I waited. I counted to 1,000. He didn't come. So I ran. You ran from where? Miller presses. Was it a house? A bunker? A farm?
The underground, Leo says.
The school. The school? The School for the Re-Education of Lost Souls. Leo recites the title like a catechism. We learn to be good. We learn to be pure.
We.
Miller catches the plural. You and Sophie? Me and Sophie. And the others. Miller's blood runs cold. Others? Leo, how many others? Leo closes his eyes. He starts counting on his fingers. There was Mark. But Mark was bad. Mark tried to steal food. Mark went to the sick bay. He pauses. Mark didn't come back from the sick bay. And who else? Just Sophie now. And the baby. The air in the room seems to vanish. The baby. Miller glances at the mirror. Knowing Dr. Vance and the entire command team are listening, knowing that a collective gasp just went through the control room. Sophie has a baby? Sophie belongs to the father, Leo says, his voice devoid of emotion, stating a fact as simple as the weather. The father loves Sophie. He says she is the chosen vessel. The baby is 2 winters old. Miller feels a wave of nausea. This isn't just a kidnapping. This is a cult. Or a breeding program. Or something so depraved it defies categorization. Leo, where's the school?
Think.
When you ran, did you see signs?
Did you see a town? Trees, Leo says.
Just trees. Endless trees.
And the mountain.
The mountain, with the jagged tooth. Miller stands up and goes to the door. He signals for a map. A topography expert rushes in with a tablet loaded with satellite imagery of the Haute-Garonne region. Miller places the tablet on the bed. Leo, look at this. This is the Earth from above. Can you show me the mountain? Leo looks at the screen. He touches the glass tentatively. He scrolls, his movements clumsy. Then he stops. He points to a ridge in the Pyrenees, a sharp, distinct peak known as Pic de Cajaire. The tooth, he says. We saw it from the exercise yard. The only piece of the world we were allowed to see. Okay, Miller says, his heart racing.
The tooth.
And the school? Was it north? South? Below, Leo says. It's not on the map. It's inside. Under the earth. We live in the roots. Miller steps out of the room. He grabs his radio. Get the French on the line. I want a tactical unit deployed to the foothills of Pic de Cajaire. Focus on subterranean structures. Old bunkers, mines, caves. And I want thermal imaging. We're looking for heat signatures underground. But back in the room, Leo is muttering again. He is rocking harder. I broke rule 4, he whispers. I ran. She dies. I ran. She dies. Dr. Vance enters. She sits beside him. Leo, why did you run? If you knew the rules... Leo looks at her, and for a moment, the madness clears. A profound, heartbreaking clarity takes over. Because she told me to, he says. She gave me the cutters. She made the distraction. She screamed. She started screaming so he would go to her cell. She drew him away so I could climb the fence. Tears spilled down his face. She sacrificed herself. She said, go find the police. Go find the world. Tell them we are here.
So I ran.
I ran while she screamed. The reality of the situation crashes down on the team. Sophie didn't just get left behind. She created a diversion. She is currently in the hands of the monster, having just facilitated an escape. The retribution will be severe. Immediate. Miller is back on the phone to the French commander. You need to move now. You don't have hours. You have minutes. The subject believes the remaining hostages are in imminent danger of execution. We are launching helicopters, the French commander replies, the roar of rotors already audible in the background. But the forest is dense. The storm damage is bad. It will take time to find an entrance to an underground facility. We don't have time, Miller shouts. Ask him about the vent. Leo. He runs back into the room. Leo, how does the air get in? How do you breathe underground? Leo blinks. The chimneys. The metal trees. They hum. In the clearing where the mushrooms grow. Metal trees, Miller relays. Look for ventilation shafts camouflaged as trees. In a clearing. As the hunt begins in France, the forensic team in London is examining Leo's clothes again. The cargo trousers. They find traces of soil in the cuffs. They rush it to the palynology lab, the study of pollen and spores. Within an hour, they have a hit. The soil contains spores of a rare fungus, tricholoma, which grows specifically under beech trees in high-altitude limestone environments. It narrows the search radius from 50 square miles to 5. The net is tightening. But the mystery of the father is still a black hole. Who is he? How has he maintained an underground complex for 20 years without detection? How does he feed them? Power the facility? A junior analyst in the back of the command room raises a hand. Sir, I've been running checks on property ownership in that specific sector of the Pyrenees. It's mostly state-owned forest. But there is one private parcel. An old Cold War listening post that was sold off by the French military in the 90s. Sold to whom? Miller barks. A shell company, the analyst says. Registered in Panama. But I dug into the signatory. It traces back to a British national. Name? Arthur Pendleton. The room goes silent. DCI Miller freezes. Arthur Pendleton? The conductor? Yes, sir. The former conductor of the London Symphony Orchestra. He vanished in 2002.
Presumed dead.
Suicide. Miller stares at the screen. Arthur Pendleton. A man of culture. A genius. A man who had been a guest lecturer at Leo Thorne School in 2003. The pieces slammed together with the force of a collision. The music. Leo was a cellist. Pendleton was a conductor. It wasn't random. It was never random. He didn't just take a boy, Miller whispers, horror dawning on him. He took an orchestra. He's building an orchestra underground. Get the photo of Pendleton, Miller orders.
Now.
They print the image. A distinguished man with silver hair, holding a baton. Miller walks back into the interview room. He holds the photo up to Leo.
Leo.
Is this him? Is this the father? Leo looks at the photo. His pupils dilate until his eyes are almost entirely black. He begins to scream. Not a scream of fear, but a scream of pure, conditioned obedience mixed with terror. He throws himself off the bed, scrambling into the corner of the room, covering his head. Don't look. Don't look. The maestro is watching.
Play.
We have to play. If we miss a note, we bleed. The confirmation is absolute. The target is identified. The location is narrowed. The motive is a twisted, artistic madness. But as the helicopters bank over the Pyrenees, scanning the forest floor for metal trees, the sun is setting. Darkness is returning to the woods. And underground, deep in the silence of the earth, Arthur Pendleton knows his opus is interrupted. He knows the police are coming. And he has one final movement to conduct. The Pyrenees are pitch black. The storm has passed, leaving behind a silence that feels heavy, suffocating. The only sound is the rhythmic thwup-thwup-thwup of the GIGN helicopters cutting through the thin mountain air. Down below, the forest is a dense, impenetrable tangle of ancient beech and pine, their roots gripping the limestone bedrock like gnarled fingers. It is a landscape that keeps secrets well. But tonight, technology is stripping those secrets away layer by layer. On board the lead helicopter, Commander Valerie stares at the thermal imaging screen. It is a wash of cool blues and purples, the cold earth, the wet trees.
But then he sees it. A spike.
A tiny, glowing pinprick of orange in the sea of blue. It's faint, barely registering, but in the wilderness, heat doesn't just happen. Heat implies life. Heat implies machinery. Target acquired. Valerie's voice crackles over the encrypted channel. Sector 4. I have a venting signature. It's warm air rising. We have found the chimneys. The coordinates are relayed. The teams on the ground, moving like shadows through the undergrowth, converge. They find the clearing Leo spoke of. And there, standing amidst the natural trunks, are the fakes. Steel pipes painted with textured bark, wrapped in artificial ivy. If you hiked past them, you wouldn't look twice. But up close, you can hear it, the low, steady hum of industrial fans pulling air from the bowels of the earth. The lungs of the monster. Breaching team, move up, Valerie commands. They find the entrance hidden beneath a heavy, hydraulic trapdoor covered in sod and moss. It looks like the entrance to a Cold War fallout shelter, which, of course, is exactly what it is. But Arthur Pendleton has modified it. He has reinforced it. The lock is electronic military grade. The GIGN don't bother with codes. They attach shaped charges to the hinges. 3, 2, 1, boom. The explosion shatters the stillness of the forest. The trapdoor is blown inward, twisting metal screeching against stone. Smoke billows out, white and acrid. Before the dust settles, the first 4 operatives are rappelling down the shaft, night vision goggles turning the darkness into a glowing green tunnel.
Go, go,
Go! The shaft is deep. 30 meters of concrete throat swallowing them whole. They hit the bottom. It's an airlock. A heavy steel blast door stands in their way. But the explosion has triggered the facility's alarms. Red lights are pulsing. A recorded voice, calm and polite, Arthur Pendleton's voice, echoes through the speakers. Alert. Perimeter breach. Please remain calm. The performance is paused. The operatives blow the second door. It falls with a thunderous crash. And then they are inside. They expect a dungeon. They expect damp walls, chains, squalor. What they find is far more disturbing. They step into a hallway that looks like it belongs in a high-end conservatory or a private boarding school. The floor is polished parquet. The walls are soundproofed with acoustic foam covered in velvet. There are framed posters of famous operas, Don Giovanni, The Magic Flute, Madame Butterfly. The air is filtered, cool, and smells faintly of beeswax and old paper. It is a hermetically sealed capsule of civilization buried under 1,000,000 tons of rock. Clear left. Clear right. The team moves with lethal precision, sweeping room by room. They find the kitchen. Stainless steel, industrial size. Stocked with canned goods to last a decade. They find the dormitories. Small, windowless cells, yes, but furnished with strange, antiquated care. A single bed. A music stand. A wardrobe containing identical uniforms, white shirts, gray trousers. No personal items. No photos. Just the bare essentials for existence. This isn't a prison, one of the operatives whispers, his gun sweeping the empty corridor. It's a monastery. Move to the central chamber, Valerie orders. The heat signatures are clustered there. We have 3 contacts. 2 stationary, 1 moving. They approach double mahogany doors at the end of the main corridor. The sound of music begins to bleed through the wood. It's not a recording. It is a cello, playing Bach, the cello suites. The music is jagged, frantic, desperate, but technically flawless. It is the sound of a bow sawing across strings with enough force to snap them. The team stacks up on the door. Police. Police Nationale. Open the door. The music doesn't stop. It gets louder. They kick the doors open. The room beyond is a replica of a small concert hall. There is a raised stage, red velvet curtains, and rows of empty chairs facing the front. On the stage, under a single, blinding spotlight, sits Arthur Pendleton. He is 70 years old now, his silver hair wild, wearing a tuxedo that has seen better days. He is not holding a weapon. He is holding a conductor's baton. And sitting on a chair in front of him, weeping silently, her hands trembling as she clutches a cello she is too weak to play properly, is a woman. Sophie. She is 34 years old, but she looks 50. Her skin is gray. Her eyes are wide with terror. She is sawing at the instrument, playing for her life. And at her feet, playing with a wooden block, is a toddler.
A boy.
Maybe 2 years old. Pale, silent, watching the armed men storm the room with curious, unblinking eyes. Drop the baton, Valerie screams, training his rifle on Pendleton's chest. Hands in the air. Now. Pendleton doesn't flinch. He taps the music stand.
Tap, tap, tap. Crescendo, Sophie. Crescendo. The audience is here. We must give them the finale. Sophie sobs a wretched sound, but she keeps playing. She is too terrified to stop. The conditioning runs too deep. Arthur Pendleton, you are under arrest. The operatives rush the stage. Pendleton looks at them with a sneer of absolute superiority. Arrest? You cannot arrest Art. You are interrupting the movement. You are Philistines. He reaches into his tuxedo pocket. He's reaching. Gun. But it's not a gun. It's a remote control. A small, black industrial switch. Don't touch it. Valerie lunges. Pendleton smiles. It is a smile of pure madness. The coda, he whispers. Purification. He presses the button. A hiss fills the room. Loud. Violent. It's coming from the vents. Not gas. Not poison. Halon. Fire suppression gas. It sucks the oxygen out of the air instantly to extinguish flames. But it also extinguishes life if you can't breathe. Masks. Masks on. Valerie shouts. The team scrambles, pulling on their gas masks. But the hostages, Sophie and the child, they don't have masks. Valerie doesn't hesitate. He tackles Pendleton, knocking the remote away, smashing the old man's face into the floorboards. Get them out. Get the girl. Get the baby. Two operatives grab Sophie. She screams, clinging to the cello as if it's her lifeline. They have to pry her fingers off the neck of the instrument. My baby. My baby, she shrieks, her voice thin and raspy in the thinning air. Another operative scoops up the child. The boy doesn't cry. He goes limp, staring up at the gas mask of the soldier, confusing this terrifying figure with some new demon of the underworld. They run. They sprint back down the velvet corridor, lungs burning, the hiss of the halon gas chasing them like a physical predator. They scramble up the stairs, carrying the victims, boots thudding against the concrete. Up, up, towards the circle of night sky at the top of the shaft. They burst out into the clearing, collapsing onto the wet earth, gasping for the sweet, cold mountain air. The medics are there instantly. Oxygen masks are slapped onto Sophie and the child. Down below, inside the bunker, the air is gone. Valerie drags Pendleton out, the conductor thrashing and gasping, his face purple. They haul him up the shaft, a broken maestro dragged from his podium. Back in London, DCI Miller is listening to the live feed. Target secure. Hostages secure. Suspect in custody. The room exhales. A cheer goes up, but Miller doesn't cheer. He closes his eyes. He thinks of Leo, sitting in the hospital bed, rocking. He thinks of Sophie, who has just been ripped from the only reality she has known for half her life. He thinks of the baby born underground, who has never seen the sun. It's not over, Miller mutters to Dr. Vance. We got the bodies out. But the minds, they're still down there. Back at the clearing, Sophie is sitting on the back of an ambulance. She pushes the oxygen mask away. She looks around at the trees, at the flashlights, at the men in armor. She looks terrified. She looks at the GIGN commander. Where is Leo? She asks. Her voice is tiny. Leo is safe, Valerie says gently. He is in London. He sent us. Sophie blinks. She looks at the moon, visible now through a break in the clouds. She shrinks back, covering her head. Too bright, she whimpers. Turn off the light. The Watcher will be angry. The Watcher is gone, Valerie says, pointing to the handcuffed figure of Pendleton being shoved into a police van. Sophie looks at Pendleton. For a moment, there is a flash of something in her eyes. Not relief, not hatred, but panic. Separation anxiety. Stockholm Syndrome in its purest, most virulent form. She reaches a hand out towards her captor. Maestro? Pendleton stops. He looks back at her. He stands tall, even in cuffs. Practice your scales, Sophie, he calls out, his voice echoing in the clearing. I will be listening. Always listening. The door slams. The engine roars. The nightmare of the bunker is over. But as the convoy winds its way down the mountain, carrying the survivors back to a world they no longer understand,
the true horror of Arthur Pendleton's experiment begins to reveal itself. Because in the raid, the police seized computers. They seized journals. They seized recordings. And as the analysts in London began to decrypt the files, they realized that Leo and Sophie were not the only ones. There is a list of names, a list of dates. And at the bottom of the list, a terrifying entry. Opus 2, the expansion. Location scouted. Berlin, New York, Prague. Pendleton wasn't just keeping a dungeon. He was franchising. The morning after the raid, the world does not just wake up, it explodes. The story of the bunker of the Pyrenees is no longer a news item, it is a global contagion. It dominates the airwaves from Tokyo to Toronto. The images of Arthur Pendleton, disheveled, wild-eyed, looking like a demonic patriarch, are plastered on every screen. But it is the other images that break the collective heart of humanity. The blurry, long-lens shots of stretchers being loaded into ambulances. The glimpses of gray skin, of terrified eyes, of a small child wrapped in a foil blanket, looking at the moon as if it were a monster. In London, the press pack outside St. Thomas Hospital is a seething ocean of cameras and satellite trucks. The police have cordoned off a 3-block radius. They are protecting the survivors not just from the paparazzi, but from the crushing weight of a reality they are not ready to face. Inside the secure wing, the atmosphere is hushed, sterile, and terrified. This is the decompression zone. You cannot take a diver from the depths of the ocean to the surface in seconds without killing them. And you cannot take Leo Thorne and Sophie from 20 years of darkness into the blinding light of 2023 without shattering their minds. The police release the identity of the woman, the second ghost. Her name is Sophie Clark. The timeline clicks into place with sickening precision. Sophie Clark, the violin prodigy from Manchester. She vanished in 2005, 2 years after Leo. She was 14 years old. She had been walking to a rehearsal at the Royal Northern College of Music. Her cello was found in a bin. She was never seen again. Until now. Inside the hospital, Leo is sitting in a darkened room. He refuses to turn on the television. He refuses to look at the iPad the nurses offer him. The modern world is too fast, too loud, too bright. He flinches at the hum of the refrigerator. He covers his ears when a siren wails 10 stories down. He is a man out of time. He asks only one question, over and over, his voice a broken loop. Is the opus finished? Is the opus finished? Down the hall, in a pediatric isolation unit, Sophie is with her son. The nurses have told her his name is legally John Doe for now, but she refuses to call him that. She calls him by the name Pendleton gave him, Amadeus. A cruel joke. A name burdened with the expectation of genius. The child is 2 years old. He has never seen a television. He has never seen a dog. He has never eaten sugar. He sits on the hospital bed, perfectly still, holding a plastic block. He does not play. He arranges. He stacks the blocks in a perfect vertical column, then knocks them down and starts again. He does not cry. Silence was a rule in the bunker. Silence is golden. Pendleton used to say, unless you are playing, you are silent. Dr. Eleanor Vance stands behind the observation glass, watching Sophie and Amadeus. Beside her is DCI Miller. They look exhausted. She's not engaging with the nurses, Vance whispers. She's treating them like wardens. She asks permission to use the toilet. She asks permission to drink water. Pendleton didn't just imprison them. He rewired their entire cognitive framework. He became their god. And the boy? Miller asks, looking at the small, pale child. He's a tabula rasa, Vance says sadly. A blank slate written on by a madman. We try to give him a teddy bear. He was terrified of it. He's never seen fur. He thinks it's a rat. The only thing that calms him is music. We played Bach over the speakers, and his heart rate dropped instantly. We need to bring them together, Miller says. Leo is unstable. He thinks Sophie is dead. He thinks the rescue was a trick. He needs to see her. It's risky, Vance warns. Trauma bonding is powerful.
They might trigger each other, but it might be the only way to ground them. The meeting is arranged for 2 p.m. They clear the corridor. They wheel Leo's bed into a neutral room, a small lounge with soft chairs and dim lighting. Sophie is brought in a wheelchair, clutching Amadeus, so tight her knuckles are white. The door opens. Leo looks up. He sees her. He sees the gray cargo trousers that match his own. He sees the pale skin. He sees the eyes that know the same darkness he knows. Sophie, he croaks. Sophie looks at him. She doesn't smile. Survivors of war don't smile when they meet in the trenches. They just nod. She wheels herself closer. She reaches out a hand. Leo takes it. They don't hug. They don't cry. They just grip each other's hands, anchoring themselves against the spinning world. The perimeter is gone, Leo whispers. The metal trees are broken, Sophie replies. It is a code. A language built on 20 years of shared hell. And the maestro? Leo asks, his eyes darting to the door. The men in black took him, Sophie says. He is in the box now. Then Leo looks at the child, Amadeus. The boy stares back at Leo with large, dark eyes. He knows Leo. Leo was the uncle in the bunker. Leo was the one who tapped rhythms on the wall when the lights went out. He is quiet, Leo says approvingly. Good. He remembers Rule 3. He remembers, Sophie says. Dr. Vance, watching from the corner, feels a chill go down her spine. They're safe, yes. But they're still there. They are a colony of 3, an island of the bunker transported to central London. Breaking that indoctrination is going to take years. But while the doctors worry about the minds of the victims, DCI Miller is worrying about the scope of the crime. He leaves the hospital and heads back to Scotland Yard. The evidence from the bunker has arrived. Crates of it. Hard drives, physical journals, ledger books. The forensic accountants have been working through the night. Miller walks into the war room, grabbing a stale coffee. Tell me, he says to the lead analyst, a sharp young woman named Patel. How does a disgraced conductor fund a multi-million-pound underground facility for 20 years without a credit footprint? Patel looks grim. She spins her monitor around. He didn't, sir. Pendleton wasn't paying for it. At least, not with his own money. Then who? We found a ledger, Patel says. Handwritten. It's titled The Patronage. It looks like a subscription list, sir. Like a season ticket holder list for the opera. Miller leans in. What are you saying? I'm saying he had donors, Patel says. Wealthy individuals. Shell companies. Offshore trusts. They were paying him. Monthly stipends. Maintenance fees. Equipment costs. And in return. She hesitates, looking nauseous. In return? Miller presses. In return, they got recordings, Patel says quietly. Exclusive recordings. Live streams. We found a server in the bunker. It was broadcasting. Encrypted, dark web, but broadcasting. Every recital. Every lesson. Every punishment. Miller feels the room spin. You mean people were watching? Yes, sir. It was a reality show for psychopaths. A private concert hall where the torture was the art. And they paid a fortune for the front row seats. Miller slams his hand on the desk. Names. I want names. It's coded, Patel says. Pseudonyms. The Duke. The Merchant. The Siren. But we're tracing the money. The payments were routed through banks in the Cayman Islands, but we have a lead on one of them. A recurring payment of £50,000 a month, tracing back to a holding company in Zurich. And the beneficiary? The holding company is linked to a family office, Patel says, typing furiously. A very prominent British family office. The kind that owns half of Mayfair. Miller stares at the screen. The implications are catastrophic. Pendleton wasn't a lone wolf. He was the ringmaster. But the audience is out there. Walking the streets. Sitting in boardrooms. Maybe even watching the news right now, sweating as they see the bunker cracked open. This just went from a kidnapping to a conspiracy, Miller says, his voice cold steel. If there was an audience, there are accomplices. And if they were watching, they are liable. Every single second of torture. They bought it. He grabs his jacket. Lock it down. No one speaks to the press about the live stream. If the donors know we know, they'll run. We need to catch them while they think they're safe. Back at the hospital, the sun is setting. David and Sarah Thorne are sitting in the waiting room. They haven't been allowed to see Leo since the initial reunion. The doctors say he is too fragile. They are exhausted, running on adrenaline and grief. A nurse approaches them. Mr. and Mrs. Thorne? Leo is asking for you. David jumps up. Is he okay? He's lucid, the nurse says. He wants to show you something. They enter the room. Leo is sitting up. He looks small in the bed. He looks at his parents, these strangers with gray hair and lined faces who claim to be the giants of his childhood. Dad. Leo whispers. I'm here, son. David chokes out, rushing to the bedside. Sarah follows, grabbing Leo's hand. I didn't forget, Leo says. I didn't forget the cello. We know, darling, Sarah sobs. We know you played. No, Leo says, shaking his head. Not the playing. The secret. He points to his left arm. To the cast where the doctors have reset his old fracture. Inside, he whispers. Inside the cast. David frowns. What do you mean? Before I ran, Leo says, his eyes burning with intensity. I stole it. From the maestro's desk. I hid it. I wrapped it in the bandage of my arm. I brought it out. David looks at the nurse. Cut the cast. Now. Sir, we can't just. Cut the damn cast. David roars, the surgeon in him taking command. The nurse hurries to get the shears. They carefully cut away the plaster Leo had been fitted with in France. They peel back the cotton lining. And there, pressed against Leo's skin, warm and damp, is a small, black USB drive. Leo looks at his father. The ledger, he whispers. The names. He kept a digital copy. In case they stopped paying. It's his insurance. David stares at the tiny device. It is a grenade. A grenade that can blow up the establishment. Give it to Miller, Leo says, closing his eyes, exhausted. Give it to the police. Burn them. Burn them all. David takes the drive. He holds it tight. He looks at Sarah. They both know what this means. Their son didn't just escape. He brought back the weapon to destroy the monster. But as David walks out of the room to find DCI Miller, his phone buzzes. An unknown number. He answers. Hello. A voice, distorted, digital, cold as the grave, speaks. Mr. Thorne, we know what Leo brought out. We know about the drive. If you give it to the police, the opus continues. But this time, the subject will be your wife. The line goes dead. David stands in the hospital corridor. The USB drive burns in his palm. The police are 10 feet away. DCI Miller is walking towards him, smiling, hand extended. Mr. Thorne, how is he? David looks at Miller. He looks at the phone. He looks at the drive. The nightmare isn't over. It has just moved from the bunker to the real world. The cornfield is an ocean of green and gold, rustling in the wind, a sound that masks the desperate, ragged breathing of David Thorne. He is no longer a respected vascular surgeon, he is prey. Mud cakes his trousers, his expensive loafers are ruined, and sweat stings his eyes. He can hear the men behind him, shouts, the crunch of boots on dry earth, the mechanical crack-crack of stalks being trampled. They are sweeping the field. They are professional, methodical, and they are gaining. David clutches the USB drive in his hand so tightly the edges bite into his palm. It is his only lifeline. It is the reason Sarah sacrificed herself. The image of her falling, of the men descending on her like vultures, burns in his mind, fueling a rage that overrides the exhaustion. I will not let this be for nothing. He reaches the edge of the field. A drainage ditch, foul with stagnant water, separates the farm from a dense woodland. He doesn't hesitate. He slides down the bank, the stench filling his nose, and scrambles up the other side, pulling himself into the cover of the trees. He runs until his legs give out, collapsing behind the thick trunk of an ancient oak. He listens. Silence. Then, the distant slam of a car door. An engine roaring to life. They have given up the foot chase. They have Sarah. They will use her as leverage. They expect him to come to them. David checks his watch. 2 p.m. He has to move. He has to get to Norfolk. But he has no car, no phone, and his face is likely on a bolo list by now, either as a missing person or a suspect, depending on how deep the corruption in the police force goes. He walks. He keeps to the tree line, avoiding roads, navigating by the sun like a Boy Scout, a skill he hasn't used since Leo was a cub. It takes him 6 hours to reach a small village. He finds a phone box, a red relic, smelling of urine and stale smoke. He has a few coins in his pocket. He dials a number he hasn't called in 10 years. It rings. And rings. And rings. Yeah. A voice answers. Gruff. Suspicious. Jack. David whispers, his throat raw. It's David. Silence on the line. Then, David? You sound like you've gone 12 rounds with a thresher. I need help, Jack. I'm in trouble. Real trouble. The kind you always talked about. Where are you? Jack's tone shifts instantly from brotherly annoyance to professional alertness. Little Walsingham, near the old priory. Stay off the main road. There's a pub called the Black Lion. Round the back, there's a wood store. Wait there. 2 hours. The line clicks dead. 2 hours later, a battered Land Rover rattles into the yard behind the pub. Jack Thorne steps out. He looks nothing like David. He is bearded, wearing a fisherman's jumper, his eyes sharp and paranoid behind wire-rimmed glasses. He spots David in the shadows and nods. Get in. Keep your head down. They drive in silence until they reach the coast. The Norfolk Broads are a labyrinth of waterways, reeds, and mist. Jack's houseboat, the Orwell, is moored in a secluded inlet, hidden from the world. Inside, it is a chaos of books, maps, and server racks. Jack is not just a hermit, he is a digital fortress. Tea, Jack says, shoving a mug into David's shaking hands. Drink, then talk. David tells him everything. The return of Leo, the bunker, the USB drive, the spoofed call, the chase, Sarah. When he finishes, the silence in the boat is heavier than the water outside. Jack leans back, lighting a hand-rolled cigarette. Pendleton, he exhales. I knew that old bat was twisted, but this is industrial-scale depravity. And the list. David places the drive on the table. Leo stole it. It's the donors. The people who paid to watch. Jack looks at the drive like it's the Holy Grail. If this is what you say it is, David, you're not just fighting a kidnapping ring. You're fighting the establishment. This is blackmail material on the global elite. Judges, politicians, CEOs. They paid for torture. If this gets out, governments fall. Can you open it? David asks. Can I open it? Jack snorts. Does the Pope wear a funny hat? He plugs the drive into an air-gapped laptop, a computer that has never touched the internet. He runs a decryption program. Lines of code scroll down the screen, green on black. It's encrypted, Jack mutters. AES 256. Standard military grade. But Pendleton was an artist, not a coder. He probably used a password that meant something to him. Try musical terms, David suggests. He was obsessed with his opus. Jack types. Mozart. Access denied. Beethoven. Access denied. Crescendo. Access denied. Think, David, Jack says. What did Leo say? What was the name of the place? The School for the Re-Education of Lost Souls. Jack types it in. Access denied. David closes his eyes, trying to channel his son's trauma. He talked about the cello. He talked about the tooth, the mountain. He talked about Sophie. Sophie, Jack types. Access denied. Wait, David says, remembering the hospital room. Remembering the terror in Leo's eyes. He said. Silence is golden unless you're playing. He said. Adagio. Jack types adagio. Nothing. What about the date? Jack asks. The date he took them? November 14th, David says. 2003. Jack types 141120003. The screen flashes red. Incorrect password. 1 attempt remaining. Data will self-destruct. Jack pulls his hands away from the keyboard as if it's hot. 1 shot, David. 1 shot left. If we get it wrong, the list is fried. And Sarah has no leverage. David stares at the blinking cursor. The pressure is crushing. He thinks of Arthur Pendleton, the ego, the grandeur, the God complex. A man like that wouldn't use a date. He wouldn't use a victim's name. He would use something that defines him. It's not a word, David whispers. It's a sequence. A musical sequence. I can't type music, David. Notes, David says. Notes have letters. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Pendleton's favorite piece. The one he was conducting when they raided. Bach, David says. Cello Suite number 1 in G major. The prelude. What are the first notes? Jack asks. David's mind races back to Leo's childhood recitals. He can see Leo's small hand on the fingerboard, the bow moving. Open string. G, then up a fourth. D, then the B, then the A. G, D, B, A, David recites. B, G, B, D. Jack hesitates. Are you sure? He made them play it for 20 years, David says. It was the soundtrack to their hell. It has to be the key. Jack nods. He types, gbabbed. He hits enter. The cursor blinks. Once. Twice. Then, the screen floods with data. Access granted. Folders appear. Hundreds of them. Labeled not with names, but with numbers. Patron 001. Patron 002. Patron 045. Jack opens Patron 001. A profile pops up. Bank details. Login times. Chat logs. And a real name, hidden in the metadata of the payment transfer. Jack's face goes ashen. Jesus Christ. Who is it? David asks, leaning over. Sir Edward Hinchcliffe. Jack reads. High Court Judge. Currently sitting on the Royal Commission for Human Rights. David feels sick. Keep going. Jack opens Patron 005. Marcus Thorne, Jack whispers. David freezes. What? Marcus Thorne. Our cousin. The CEO of Thorne Industries. David staggers back. No. That's impossible. Marcus. He helped us search. He paid for the private investigators. He paid for them to find nothing, Jack says, his voice dripping with venom. He was watching David. He was watching your son in a cage while he sat at your dinner table and drank your wine. The betrayal is so absolute, so visceral, that David can't breathe. His own blood. His own family. This is it, Jack says, typing furiously now. We have them. We have them all. We need to upload this. WikiLeaks. The Guardian. Everyone. No, David says. Not yet. Why the hell not? Because they have Sarah, David says. If we dump this now, they'll kill her out of spite. They'll burn the house down with her inside. We need to trade. You can't trade with these people, David. They don't make deals. They clean up loose ends. I have to try, David says. Find out who is holding her. Use the chat logs. See if there's a cleaner or a fixer mentioned. Jack scrolls through the files. There's a folder called Logistics. Subfolder. Disposal. He opens it. It's a list of contractors. Mercenaries. Here, Jack points. The contact for emergency retrieval. A firm called Aegis Solutions. Based in East London. Run by an ex-SAS guy named Cray. That's who has her, David says. Aegis. So, what's the plan? Jack asks. You going to knock on the door of a paramilitary hit squad and ask for your wife back? No, David says. I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse. I'm going to offer them the only thing they care about more than the list. Which is? Arthur Pendleton, David says. Pendleton is in police custody. Exactly, David says, a cold, hard resolve settling in his eyes. So we're going to have to break him out. Jack stares at his brother. You've lost your mind. You're a doctor, David, not James Bond. I'm a father, David says. And I'm done playing by the rules. We have the leverage. We have the list. We tell the patrons, give us Sarah, and we give you the drive. If you touch her, the list goes live to every news agency on the planet in 10 seconds. A dead man's switch, Jack nods. Okay, I can set that up. But how do we get Pendleton? And why would they want him? He's a liability. Because, David says, pointing to the screen, look at the last folder. Opus 2, the expansion. Yeah. Pendleton is the only one who knows where the other bunkers are, David says. He didn't write the locations down. It says location scouted, not built. He has the coordinates in his head. If they want to scrub the rest of their operation before the police find it, they need him. They need him to silence the other children. So we're offering them the architect of their destruction, Jack muses, to save Sarah. It's a bluff, David says. We're not giving them anything. We're going to lure them into a trap. And then we're going to let DCI Miller finish the job. You trust Miller? I have to, David says. He's the only cop who hasn't tried to bury this. David takes the phone. He dials the number that called him in the hospital. The spoofed number. It rings once. Mr. Thorne, the voice says. We expected you sooner. I have the drive, David says. And I have the password. I've seen the names. I've seen Marcus. A pause on the line. Negotiation is a dangerous game, Doctor. It's not a negotiation, David says. It's a trade. My wife for the drive. And I want to make the exchange in person. Where? The Tate Modern, David says. The Turbine Hall. Tomorrow. Noon. Public place. Lots of cameras. If I see a gun, the list goes online. Agreed, the voice says. Bring the drive. If it's a copy, she dies. If you're late, she dies. Click. David looks at Jack. We have 12 hours. To do what? To build a fake drive, David says. And to call Miller. The Tate Modern is a cathedral of industry turned temple of the avant-garde. Its massive brick chimney pierces the grey London skyline like a warning finger, but inside, the Turbine Hall is a void of echoing concrete and steel. At high noon, the space is a swarm of tourists, school groups, and art lovers, a sea of movement that David Thorne hopes will be his shield. He stands on the bridge overlooking the hall, his hand inside his coat pocket, gripping a silver USB drive. It is a decoy, a Trojan horse loaded with a tracking virus that Jack built in the small hours of the morning. The real data is currently sitting on a server in Norfolk, tied to a digital timer. If Jack doesn't enter a code every 60 minutes, the names of the patrons will be blasted to the global press. David feels the eyes on him before he sees the man. It's a sensory prickle, a coldness at the base of his neck. To his left, leaning against the railing, is a man in a charcoal suit, looking at a giant installation of hanging woven ropes. He looks like any other city professional on a lunch break, except for the coiled wire of a Secret Service-style earpiece disappearing into his collar. Don't turn around, Doctor, the man says. His voice is a low, cultured rasp. You're looking a bit frayed. The Norfolk air didn't agree with you. Where is Sarah? David's voice is steady, a surgeon's calm born of pure, desperate adrenaline. She's close. But let's discuss the merchandise first. You have the drive. I have it, David says. But you should know, the files are encrypted with a rotating key. Even if you kill me and take it, you'll never get in. My brother has the sequence. If I don't call him in 10 minutes, the list goes to the Home Office, the BBC, and the FBI. The man in the suit smiles, a thin, mirthless line. A dead man's switch. Predictable, but effective. However, we have a counteroffer. You give us the drive, and you give us the location of the other Maestro files Leo mentioned. In return, you get your wife. And you get to live. The trade is Sarah for the drive, David says. Nothing else. Look down, the man says. David looks over the railing into the vast pit of the turbine hall. Near the far entrance, he sees her. Sarah. She is sitting on a concrete bench, flanked by 2 men in casual jackets. She looks pale, her head bowed, but she is alive. She is breathing. The sight of her makes David's heart surge with a violent, painful hope. We have snipers in the vents, David, the man whispers. This is a public place, yes. But a lot of people can die in the crossfire before the police even get through the doors. Do you want that on your conscience? I don't have a conscience anymore, David says. You took it when you took my son. Now, send her to the bridge. Halfway. When she's in the middle, I'll drop the drive. The man speaks into his cuff. At the bottom of the hall, the 2 guards stand Sarah up. They begin walking her toward the stairs. David watches her every step. She looks up, her eyes finding his across the vast distance. In that look, there is a lifetime of shared grief and a silent plea. Run. Suddenly, the air in the hall changes. The tourists don't notice it, but David does. The exits are being quietly closed. Men in dark blue tactical gear are appearing at the peripheries. DCI Miller has arrived. He wasn't supposed to move until the handoff was complete, but something has gone wrong. Police. Nobody move. The shout echoes through the hall like a gunshot. Chaos erupts. The tourists scream, diving for the floor. The guards holding Sarah draw suppressed handguns. The man in the suit beside David moves with lightning speed, reaching for a weapon in his waistband. But David is faster. He doesn't go for the drive. He lunges at the man, tackling him into the railing. They scramble. A messy, desperate struggle. David is 55, a doctor, but he is fighting for his soul. He feels a sharp pain in his side, a knife, a punch, he doesn't know. He just grips the man's throat, his thumbs digging into the carotid artery with anatomical precision. David, get down. It's Miller's voice, coming from the gantry above. A shot rings out. A single, high-velocity crack. The man David is holding jerks, a red blossom blooming on his forehead. He falls back, his eyes rolling into his head, and slides over the railing, plummeting 40 feet to the concrete floor below. David doesn't watch him fall. He's already running down the stairs toward Sarah. Sarah. Sarah, run. The guards are retreating, firing back at the tactical teams emerging from the shadows. Sarah is caught in the middle, frozen in the line of fire. One of the Aegis mercenaries grabs her, using her as a human shield as he backs toward a service exit. Let her go. Miller screams, his MP5 leveled. Drop the guns or she's dead, the mercenary roars, his pistol pressed against Sarah's temple. The standoff is agonizing. The hall is silent now, save for the distant sound of sirens and the heavy breathing of 20 armed men. David reaches the bottom of the stairs, standing 20 feet away. Look at me, David says to the mercenary. I'm the one you want. I have the drive. It's right here. He holds up the silver thumb drive. You take her, you get nothing. You take me, you get the list, you get the money, and you get out of here alive. The mercenary hesitates. His eyes dart between David and the tactical team. He's a professional. He knows the odds are shifting against him. Give me the drive, the mercenary says. David walks forward, hands open. Take it. As the mercenary reaches out, distracted by the prize, Sarah does something no one expects. She doesn't scream. She doesn't faint. She remembers the strength she used to hold her family together for 20 years. She slams her elbow back into the man's ribs and bites down on his wrist with animal ferocity. The man yelps, his aim wavering for a fraction of a second. Pop pop. 2 shots from Miller's team. The mercenary drops. Sarah falls to her knees, sobbing. David is there in a second, shielding her with his body, his arms wrapping around her like iron bands. I've got you, he whispers into her hair. I've got you. It's over. But it isn't over. DCI Miller approaches them, his face grim. He isn't looking at the fallen mercenaries. He's looking at his phone. David, Miller says, his voice shaking. We have a problem.
What?
We have the drive. We have Sarah.
It's Leo, Miller says.
And Sophie. They're gone.
David stands up, cold dread washing over him. Gone? They're in a secure hospital wing. The transport was hit, Miller says. 20 minutes ago. They were being moved to a safe house in the countryside. A black van rammed the convoy. Gas grenades. They took Leo, Sophie, and the baby. David looks at the silver drive in his hand. The decoy. The patrons didn't want the drive. They didn't want to trade. The meeting at the Tate was a distraction, a way to draw David, Sarah, and the bulk of Miller's tactical unit away from the real targets. The patrons aren't trying to hide the past anymore. They're trying to finish the work. They're taking them back, David whispers, the horror of it nearly breaking him. They're taking them back to the bunker. Or a new one. No, Sarah says, standing up, her voice suddenly cold and sharp. They aren't taking them to a bunker. She points to the man David tackled. The one who fell from the bridge. A small, leather notebook has fallen out of his pocket. Miller picks it up. He flips through the pages. It's not names. It's logistics, flight paths, private airfields, and a single address written in a hand that David recognizes from the Opus files. The Royal Albert Hall. Tonight, Miller reads. The grand finale. Special performance for the patrons. The symphony, David says, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. Pendleton told Leo, the performance is paused. He didn't mean it was over. He meant he was just waiting for the right stage. The patrons aren't running. They are gathering. One last night of music, one last night of horror, before they disappear into the shadows forever. We have to get there, David says. Now. We don't have authorization for a raid on the Albert Hall during a gala, Miller says, his jaw set. The guest list includes the Prime Minister's inner circle. Then we don't go in as police, David says, looking at his wife. We go in as the audience. The Royal Albert Hall stands as a red brick titan of Victorian ambition, a circular fortress of high culture nestled in the heart of South Kensington. Tonight, its terracotta friezes, depicting the triumph of arts and sciences, seem to glow with a sickly, gilded light. To the thousands of tourists strolling through Hyde Park, it is merely another evening of orchestral brilliance. But to David and Sarah Thorne, it is the mouth of the beast. They stand at the periphery of the red carpet, a ghost couple in borrowed finery, their hearts hammering against their ribs like trapped birds. Around them, the air is thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the hushed, arrogant murmurs of the world's most powerful people. This is the Gala of the Century, a private, invitation-only event purportedly held to celebrate international diplomacy. But David knows the truth. The name on the program is a lie. The music will be a requiem. And the audience, the men in the sharp tuxedos and the women in shimmering silk, are the patrons of the bunker. They move through the security checkpoint with the help of DCI Miller's remaining loyalists. It is a delicate dance of deception. The hall's private security is managed by Aegis Solutions, the very mercenaries who snatched Leo and Sarah. Miller has managed to jam their digital guest list, slipping David and Sarah into the system as representatives of the Thorne Family Trust. It is a move of suicidal bravery. They are walking directly into a room filled with the people who paid to watch their son suffer for 2 decades. Inside, the auditorium is a vast, crimson bowl of opulence. Tiered boxes rise up like the cells of a hive, filled with the elite. David scans the faces. There, in Box 12, is a former cabinet minister. In Box 5, a media mogul who controls 3 national newspapers. They are sipping champagne, laughing, checking their gold watches. They look utterly civilized. That is the true horror, the banality of evil. They don't look like monsters. They look like the evening news. I see him, Sarah whispers, her voice barely audible over the hum of the crowd. David looks where she is pointing. In the royal box at the very center of the hall sits Marcus Thorne, their cousin, the man who sat at their table, who held their hands during the dark years, who whispered words of comfort while he was secretly paying for the live-streamed agony of their child. Marcus looks magnificent. He is the picture of corporate success, leaning over to whisper a joke to a European diplomat.
He is the master of ceremonies for this nightmare. The lights begin to dim. A hush falls over the 5,000 seats. It is a heavy, expectant silence, not the silence of a music-loving public, but the predatory quiet of an audience waiting for the first drop of blood. The stage is set. In the center, under a single, cold spotlight, sits a cello, and a violin, and a small, wooden stool. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice booms over the speaker system, a voice that is cultured, resonant, and chillingly familiar. It is the voice of Arthur Pendleton. But Pendleton is in a high-security cell in Belmarsh. David freezes. Tonight, we conclude our 20-year journey. The final movement, the purification of the line. It is a recording, or perhaps not. Miller's voice crackles in David's concealed earpiece. David, listen to me. We've just had a report from Belmarsh. Pendleton didn't make it to the infirmary. He was intercepted during the transfer. He's in the building. I repeat, the maestro is in the building. The stage floor begins to rise. A hydraulic platform slowly brings 3 figures into the light. The audience gasps, a collective intake of breath that sounds like a hiss. There is Leo. He is dressed in a pristine tuxedo, but it hangs off his skeletal frame like a shroud. His face is a mask of terror, his eyes darting frantically across the dark auditorium. Beside him is Sophie, clutching her violin as if it were a weapon. And on the stool between them sits the boy, Amadeus. He is wearing a tiny velvet suit, his face pale as ivory, his eyes fixed on the conductor's podium. Behind them, emerging from the shadows of the organ pipes, is Arthur Pendleton. He has been groomed. His hair is slicked back, his tuxedo crisp. He holds his baton aloft like a scepter. He looks out at the sea of patrons and beaux. The applause is deafening. It is a standing ovation for a kidnapper, for a torturer. Tonight, Pendleton calls out, his voice echoing without the need for a microphone. We perform the Elegy of the Void, a piece composed in the silence of the earth, a piece that requires total commitment. He turns to Leo. The boy, the man, is trembling so violently the cello strings hum with a discordant vibration. Play, Leo, Pendleton commands. For your family, for your audience, for your life. Leo raises the bow. His hand is shaking. He looks out into the darkness, perhaps searching for the faces he knows, but the spotlight blinds him. He is alone on the stage, in a room full of wolves. We have to stop this, Sarah hisses, her hand gripping David's arm so hard she draws blood. David now. But Miller's voice is sharp in the earpiece. Wait. The Aegis teams have the exits covered with snipers. If we move now, they'll kill the hostages on stage before we even reach the floor. We need to cut the power. I have a team in the basement, but they're pinned down. David, you're the only one in the main hall. You have to get to the sound booth. The sound booth is located at the very back of the arena, 3 tiers up. To get there, David has to navigate the corridors filled with patron security. Stay here, David tells Sarah. If the lights go out, run for the stage. Don't look back. David. I love you. Go. David slips out of the box and into the plush, carpeted hallway. It is a labyrinth of shadows. He moves with the stealth of a man who has spent his life navigating the quiet halls of hospitals, his footsteps muffled by the thick pile. He reaches the service stairs. He hears the music begin. It is a sound like no other. The cello and the violin weave together in a tapestry of pure, unadulterated grief. It is the sound of the bunker. It is the sound of 20 years of lost sunrises and stolen dreams. Leo is playing with a ferocity that is frightening. He is pouring every ounce of his shattered soul into the strings. It is beautiful. It is hideous. The patrons are leaning forward, mesmerized. They aren't just watching a performance. They are consuming a tragedy. David reaches the 3rd tier. 2 Aegis guards stand outside the sound booth. They're looking at the stage, distracted by the music. David doesn't have a gun. He has his surgeon's kit. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a pressurized canister of anesthetic sevoflurane. He moves. He sprays the guards,
a wide arc of chemical mist. They turn, startled, but the gas is instantaneous. They stumble, their eyes glazing over, and collapse into the velvet curtains. David catches the first one, lowering him silently, then the second. He grabs the key card from the guard's belt and swipes. The sound booth is a high-tech nerve center. 2 technicians are at the boards, adjusting the levels for the live stream. They don't even see David until he is behind them. "Hands up," David growls. The technicians freeze. "Who the hell are you?" "The father of the boy you're exploiting," David says. He smashes the butt of the guard's stolen pistol into the first technician's temple. The second one lunges, but David kicks him in the chest, sending him sprawling over the mixing desk. David looks at the array of switches. He doesn't know how to run a soundboard, but he knows how to break one. He looks for the master power. He finds a heavy, red lever labeled emergency bypass. Down on the stage, the music is reaching a frantic, screeching crescendo. Pendleton is waving his baton like a madman, his face contorted in a mask of ecstatic cruelty. Leo is weeping as he plays, the bow a blur of motion. "Now," David whispers. He slams the lever down. The Royal Albert Hall plunged into absolute, crushing darkness. The music stops with a violent snap. The air is suddenly filled with the sound of 5,000 people screaming in confusion. "Miller. Now." David shouts into his radio. The emergency lights, low, red, and dim, flicker on. It is the light of a slaughterhouse. Below, on the stage, chaos has erupted. Sarah is running across the floor, screaming Leo's name. Miller's tactical teams burst through the side doors, flashlights cutting through the gloom like sabers. "Police. Stay down. Stay down." But the patrons aren't staying down. They are the elite. They believe they are above the law. Their personal security details draw weapons. The auditorium becomes a battlefield. Gunshots ring out, echoing off the high dome, the sound muffled by the velvet and the carpet. David watches from the booth as Marcus Thorne stands up in the royal box. Marcus isn't running. He is looking at the stage. He draws a small, silver pistol from his pocket. He isn't aiming at the police. He is aiming at Leo. "No!" David screams, though no one can hear him. He throws himself out of the sound booth, leaping over the railing of the third tier, sliding down the structural pillars of the gallery. He falls, crashing onto a lower balcony, his shoulder popping with a sickening crunch. He doesn't feel it. He keeps moving. On the stage, Pendleton has grabbed Amadeus. He is holding the child in front of him like a shield, backing toward the rear of the stage where the organ pipes hide a secret exit. Leo is on the floor, clutching his cello, paralyzed by the sudden violence. Sarah reaches the stage. She lunges for the child. "Give him to me," she screams. Pendleton sneers. "He is my masterpiece, Sarah." He stays with the maestro. He raises a small derringer, aiming it at Sarah's heart. Crack. A shot rings out. But it isn't from Pendleton. It's from the royal box. Marcus Thorne is fired. But he didn't hit Leo. He hit Pendleton. The conductor staggers back, a look of shocked betrayal on his face. He looks up at Marcus. "Loose ends, Arthur." Marcus calls out over the din of the riot. The show is over. Pendleton falls, his body disappearing into the dark void behind the stage. Amadeus is left standing alone, looking at the dead man who called himself his father. Sarah scoops the boy up, shielding him with her body as she crawls toward Leo. David reaches the floor of the hall. He is running toward the stage, but a figure blocks his path. Marcus Thorne has jumped from the box, landing with the grace of a younger man. He stands between David and his family, the silver pistol leveled at David's chest. "You should have taken the deal, David," Marcus says. He looks calm, even as the world around him burns. "You could have had Sarah back. You could have lived in comfort. Now you're just a witness. And witnesses are a liability." "You killed your own blood," David gasps, clutching his broken shoulder. "You watched him for 20 years. Why?" "Because power isn't about money, David," Marcus says, his eyes cold and empty. "It's about what you can make people do. It's about the ownership of the soul.
Leo wasn't just a boy. He was a symphony of control. Marcus raises the gun. He takes aim at the space between David's eyes. Goodbye, cousin. He pulls the trigger. Click. The gun has jammed. The silver masterpiece of engineering has failed him in the one moment that matters. David doesn't wait. He lunges. He hits Marcus with the force of 20 years of accumulated rage. They go down, a tangle of limbs and teeth on the floor of the Royal Albert Hall. David isn't a surgeon anymore. He is a father. He grips Marcus's head and slams it against the marble floor. Once, twice, 3 times. David, stop. It's Miller. The DCI pulls David off the bloody, semi-conscious form of Marcus Thorne. We've got him, Miller says, his voice ragged. We've got them all. Look. David looks. The hall is filled with police. The patrons, the judges, the ministers, the CEOs, are being let out in handcuffs, their faces shielded from the cameras that have suddenly appeared in the galleries. The gala of the century has become the arrest of the millennium. On the stage, Sarah is holding Leo and Amadeus. They are huddling together under the red spotlight, a broken, beautiful family reunited in the ruins of a concerto. David walks toward them, his legs shaking, his body broken. He climbs onto the stage. He sinks to his knees beside them. He reaches out and touches Leo's face. Leo, he whispers. Leo looks at him. The madness is still there, deep in the pupils, but for the first time, there is something else. A spark. A recognition. Dad. I'm here, son. I'm here. They hold each other as the sirens wail outside, as the world begins to process the magnitude of the horror that was hidden beneath their feet. The bunker is gone. The maestro is dead. The patrons are in chains. But as David looks at the list of names flickering on the discarded tablet of a technician, he sees something that makes his blood run cold. A final folder. Opus 3, The Heirs. And inside, a map of London, with red dots marking 12 private schools. The symphony isn't over. It has just moved to a new movement. The aftermath of the Royal Albert Hall is not a resolution, it is a rupture. The trial of the century begins not in a courtroom, but in the collective psyche of a nation that has realized its shepherds were wolves. The Old Bailey, that venerable fortress of British justice, is surrounded by a permanent sea of protesters, their signs screaming for blood, for names, for the truth. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of high-priced legal parchment and the cold, clinical sweat of the powerful. Marcus Thorne sits in the dock, his face healed but his eyes remained a void of remorseless steel. Beside him, in a row that stretches the length of the room, are the silent patrons, men and women whose names were once synonymous with integrity, now stripped bare by the digital ledger Leo brought out of the dark. But as the prosecution begins to weave the tale of the bunker, the focus shifts from the monsters in suits to the survivors in the shadows. Leo, Sophie, and the boy are no longer in a hospital. They are in a high-security transition unit in the Cotswolds, a place of soft edges and reinforced glass. To the world, they are miracles. To DCI Miller and Dr. Eleanor Vance, they are a puzzle with pieces that no longer fit. They aren't testifying, Miller says, pacing the small office overlooking the exercise yard. He looks thinner, the weight of the conspiracy etching deep lines into his face. The Crown Prosecution Service is breathing down my neck. They say without Leo's direct testimony, Marcus's lawyers will tear the digital evidence apart. They'll claim it was a forgery, a plant by a rival corporation. Dr. Vance looks out the window. Below, Leo is sitting on a wooden bench. He isn't looking at the trees or the sky. He is staring at his hands, his fingers moving in a rhythmic, ghost-like pattern. He is still playing the cello in his mind. He can't testify, Miller, she says softly. To put him on that stand, to make him look at Marcus, is to send him back to the hole. He hasn't integrated the last 20 years. To him, the bunker is still real. This sunlight, this grass, it's just a dream he's having before the maestro wakes him up. And the heirs? Miller asks, his voice dropping to a whisper. The map we found? The schools. Vance turns away from the window, her expression grim. We've swept every school on that list. We found nothing. No tunnels, no hidden rooms, no metal trees. But that's the point, isn't it? Pendleton was a genius of camouflage. If the next phase of the opus had already begun, it wouldn't look like a bunker. It would look like a curriculum. It would look like a scholarship program. The horror of Vance's words hangs in the air. While the public is focused on the cages of the past, the architecture of the future is already being built. The heirs wasn't a plan for more kidnappings. It was a plan for indoctrination. Pendleton hadn't just wanted an orchestra. He wanted a generation of elite children conditioned to view his brand of purity as the only truth. Back at the Old Bailey, the trial takes a sensational turn. Marcus Thorne, realizing the evidence against him is insurmountable, decides to burn the world down with him. He fires his legal team and represents himself. He stands in the center of the court, a predator in a bespoke suit, and smiles at the gallery. "You call it a crime," Marcus says, his voice projected with the ease of a CEO at a shareholders' meeting. "I call it an investment. We didn't destroy those children. We refined them. We stripped away the static of a decadent, distracted world and gave them the gift of absolute focus. Look at the recordings. Look at the technical proficiency of Leo Thorne. He is the greatest cellist of his generation. Would he be that if he had stayed in Kensington, distracted by girls and video games? No. He would be mediocre. We gave him greatness." A roar of disgust ripples through the court, but Marcus doesn't flinch. "And as for the heirs, you're looking for them in the wrong places. You're looking for basements. You should be looking at the boards of directors. You should be looking at the honor rolls. The opus isn't a place. It's a frequency. And once you hear it, you never stop playing." The judge hammers for order, but the damage is done. The seed of doubt is planted. The media begins to pick apart the heirs' theory, fueled by leaked documents from an anonymous source. Is it possible there are more? Is the School for Lost Souls just the tip of an iceberg that reaches into the very heart of the British education system? In the Cotswolds, the peace is shattered by a delivery. A plain wooden box, addressed to Leo Thorne. It passes through the X-ray, the sniffers, the security detail. It contains nothing but a single sheet of sheet music. It is a new composition. The title at the top is written in a hand that makes the security guard's blood run cold. Symphony No. 3, The Inheritance. Leo opens the box. He looks at the notes. His eyes widen. He doesn't scream. He doesn't rock. He stands up, his posture suddenly straight, his face losing the slackness of trauma. He walks to the corner of the room where his new cello sits, a gift from his father. He begins to play. It isn't the jagged, mournful Bach of the bunker. It is something new. It is aggressive. It is complex. It is a call to arms. In the room next door, Sophie stops what she is doing. She picks up her violin. She begins to play the counter-melody, as if she already knows the notes. And in the nursery, little Amadeus stops, stacking his blocks. He stands up, his small hands conducting the air, his eyes bright with a terrifying, precocious intelligence. Dr. Vance rushes into the room, heart pounding. "Leo, stop." Leo doesn't stop. He looks at her, and for the first time since his rescue, he isn't afraid. He is certain. The maestro said the finale would be heard across the world, Leo says, his bow dancing across the strings. He said the music is the key. It opens the doors that were never there. "What doors, Leo?" "The ones in the mind," Leo whispers. Suddenly, the monitors in the security station begin to flicker. The feeds from the Old Bailey, the news channels, the private security cameras in London, they all begin to glitch. The audio is replaced by a single, low-frequency hum. And then, the music begins. It is the same piece Leo is playing. It is being broadcast from every smart device, every public address system, every radio frequency in the city. A signal override of impossible sophistication. In the courtroom, Marcus Thorne stops talking. He closes his eyes and smiles. He begins to hum along. "The activation," Marcus whispers to the stunned judge. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Across London, in 12 elite private schools, 12 children stand up in their classrooms. They aren't scared. They aren't confused. They move in perfect unison, as if following a score only they can hear. They walk toward the exits. They walk toward the black vans waiting at the gates. The heirs weren't hidden. They were hiding in plain sight. They were the children of the patrons, the next generation of the elite, conditioned from birth through private tutoring and special music lessons to be the sleeper cells of Pendleton's vision. DCI Miller screams into his radio, ordering a lockdown of the city, but the grid is failing. The music is a virus, a digital acoustic weapon that is jamming communications and triggering a pre-programmed response in the subjects. David and Sarah Thorne, watching the news from a safe house in London, see the footage of the schools. They see the children being loaded into the vans. And they see the face of one of the drivers. It is the maestro himself. But he's dead, Sarah gasps. We saw Marcus shoot him. David leans into the screen, his eyes narrowed. No. We saw Marcus shoot a man in a tuxedo, a man who looked like Pendleton from a distance. The realization hits David like a physical blow. The man in the Albert Hall was a double, a decoy. The real Arthur Pendleton never left the shadows. He orchestrated his own death to end the investigation, to give the patrons a fall guy, and to allow the third movement to begin without interference. The boy who vanished has come home, but the world he returned to is being stolen from under his feet. The bunker wasn't the end. It was the audition. We have to find them, David says, grabbing his coat. The music. We have to trace the source of the broadcast. It's coming from everywhere, David. Miller's voice crackles over the failing phone line. It's a mesh network. Every device is a transmitter. We can't stop the signal. Then we find the conductor, David says. He's not in a bunker. He's not in a school. Where would a man like Pendleton go to watch his greatest triumph? David looks at the map of London. He looks at the red dots. And he sees the pattern. They aren't just schools. They are points on a circle centered on a single, historic landmark. The Tower of London. The ancient seat of power. The place where kings were made and traitors were broken. He's at the tower, David says. As the sun sets over the Thames, the music reaches a deafening volume. The city is paralyzed. The lights of the Tower Bridge begin to pulse in time with the rhythm. The final movement has begun, and the maestro is waiting for his lead cellist. The Tower of London is a fortress built of blood and bone, a cold stone heart beating in the center of a city that has forgotten how to scream. Tonight, it is the stage for a finale that was 20 years in the making. The music, that relentless, haunting, inheritance symphony, is no longer coming from speakers. It is vibrating through the very pavement, a low-frequency pulse that makes the water of the Thames ripple in geometric patterns. The city is a ghost town, the streets clogged with abandoned cars, their radios blaring the same impossible melody. The police are blind, their digital network shattered by a signal that seems to originate from the air itself. David Thorne and DCI Miller stand at the edge of the wharf, the traitors' gate looming before them like a set of iron teeth. They are alone. No backup. No tactical teams. Just two men fueled by a desperate, paternal rage and a flickering hope that the world can still be saved from the song. The signal is strongest here, Miller says, his hand trembling as he checks his mechanical compass. The stone. The White Tower. It's acting like a massive acoustic resonator. He's inside, David. He's in the heart of the keep. They move through the shadows, avoiding the automated searchlights that sweep the courtyard. The yeoman warders are gone. Or perhaps they are part of it now. The heirs aren't just children. They are the loyalists, the ones who stayed in the shadows while Pendleton played his long game. They find the entrance to the White Tower. The heavy oak doors are ajar, as if inviting them in. The air inside is thick with the smell of incense and old parchment. They climb the spiral staircase, the music getting louder with every step, a cacophony of violins and cellos that seems to pull at the very fabric of David's mind. He feels the urge to stop, to listen, to bow his head and let the melody take him. Don't listen to it. David snarls, grabbing Miller's arm. It's a rhythm, a hypnotic trigger. Focus on the heartbeat. Focus on Leo. They burst into the council chamber at the top of the tower. The room is vast, timber-framed, and filled with the children, the 12 heirs. They are standing in a circle, their faces blank, their eyes fixed on the man at the center. Arthur Pendleton. He is not wearing a tuxedo tonight. He is wearing a simple, white linen robe. He looks older, his face a map of ancient, artistic madness, but his eyes are burning with a terrifying, lucid light. He holds no baton. He holds a conductor's score, handwritten on vellum that looks like human skin. "You're late, David," Pendleton says. His voice is a whisper, yet it carries over the roar of the music as if spoken directly into David's ear. The overture is over. We are at the climax. "Let them go, Pendleton," David shouts, his hand reaching for the stolen pistol in his belt. The police are coming. The patrons are in custody. It's over. Pendleton laughs, a sound like dry leaves skittering on a grave. The patrons were the fuel, David. Necessary but ultimately disposable. They paid for the research. They funded the acquisition of the vessels. But the music belongs to the world now. Look at the children. They aren't captives. They are the new architects. They're children. Miller screams, leveling his gun. "You brainwashed them. I woke them up." Pendleton roars, his arms sweeping out to embrace the circle. "I gave them the frequency of the stars. I gave them a world without the static of your mediocre morality." Suddenly, a side door opens. A figure steps into the light. It is Leo. He is carrying his cello. His face is pale, his movements mechanical. He walks to the center of the circle and sits. He doesn't look at David. He doesn't look at Pendleton. He looks at the boy, Amadeus, who is standing at Pendleton's right hand. "Leo, no." David whispers, his heart breaking. "Don't play. Don't play the song." Leo looks up. For a split second, the veil of indoctrination flinches. His eyes meet David's. "I have to, Dad," Leo says, his voice a ghost of the boy who wanted to buy milk 20 years ago. "The maestro says if I don't finish the movement, the world will never stop screaming. I have to play the silence." Leo places the bow on the strings. "The silence of the lambs," Pendleton whispers. The final chord that resets the pulse. Leo begins to play. But it isn't the inheritance symphony. It is something else. It is a discordance. A violent, ugly, jarring series of notes that clash with the broadcast melody. It is the sound of a heart breaking. It is the sound of a man fighting for his soul. The music in the air begins to stutter. The children in the circle flinch, their blank expressions cracking. Amadeus covers his ears, a small whimper escaping his lips. "What are you doing?" Pendleton screams, his face contorting in rage. "Play the score. Play the inheritance." "No," Leo gasps, his hands bleeding as he pushes the cello beyond its limits. "I'm playing the truth. I'm playing the 20 years. I'm playing the dark. I'm playing the rain on Gloucester Road." The signal begins to fail. The low-frequency hum turns into a high-pitched squeal. Outside, the lights of London begin to flicker back to a steady, normal glow. The digital grid reboots. The power of the maestro is being unraveled by the very instrument he trained. "Kill him," Pendleton screams at the children. Silence the discord. The 12 heirs move. They draw small, silver knives from their sleeves. They step toward Leo. Crack, crack. Miller fires. 2 of the children fall, wounded in the legs. David lunges forward, tackling Pendleton, the 2 of them crashing into the wooden altar at the front of the chamber. It is a desperate, primal struggle. David is fighting the architect of his son's hell. He doesn't use his hands. He uses his weight, his grief, the 20 years of empty chairs at the dinner table. He slams Pendleton's head against the stone pillar. "Where is the master switch?" David roars. How do we stop the broadcast?" Pendleton smiles through the blood. "You can't. The music is in them now. It's in the blood. Even if you kill me, they will always hear the song." On the stage, Leo is still playing. The cello is splintering, the wood cracking under the pressure. The strings snap, one by one, whipping across Leo's face, drawing blood. He keeps playing on a single, frayed string. He is playing a note so low, so pure, that it seems to vibrate the very foundations of the White Tower. The signal hits a feedback loop. A massive, sonic boom erupts from the center of the tower, shattering every window in the keep. The heirs collapse, clutching their heads as the indoctrination is literally shaken from their minds. The music stops. The silence that follows is absolute. It is the silence of the morning after a war. David stands up, gasping for air. Pendleton lies at his feet, his eyes wide and vacant, his heart finally stopped by the sheer physical shock of the sonic discharge. The maestro is dead. For real this time. David runs to Leo. The cello lies in pieces on the floor. Leo is slumped over the wreckage, his hands shredded, his face covered in blood and tears. He looks up at David. "Is it quiet, Dad?" Leo whispers. David gathers him into his arms, pulling the broken man against his chest. "It's quiet, Leo. It's finally quiet." Miller is rounding up the children, his voice gentle now, the warrior replaced by the protector. They are confused, weeping, their eyes finally regaining the spark of childhood. The heirs are just children again. The sun begins to rise over the Thames, casting long, golden shadows across the Tower of London. The city is waking up. The sirens are returning, but they are the sirens of rescue, not of war. But as the police and medics swarm the White Tower, David looks at his son. Leo is staring at the boy, Amadeus. The child is standing by the window, looking out at the city he has never known. Amadeus turns. He looks at Leo. He doesn't speak. He doesn't cry. He simply raises his hand and taps a rhythm on the stone wall. Tap, 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 tap. It is the first four notes of the Bach cello suite. Leo's eyes go wide. He looks at David. He looks at the child. The music isn't gone. It can never be gone. It is a part of them now, a language they will speak for the rest of their lives. The bunker is a memory, the maestro is a corpse, and the patrons are in prison. But the boy who vanished and the heirs of the void will carry the melody forever. The case is closed. The mystery of the missing teen from Kensington has ended with a miracle and a nightmare. David and Sarah Thorne have their son back. But as they walk out of the Tower of London into the bright, terrifying light of 2026, they know that the symphony has merely changed movements. The world is listening. And somewhere, in a darkened room in a city halfway across the globe, a child picks up a violin, hears a hum in the air, and begins to play. The opus continues.